I still got to mute the YouTube shit. Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another episode. It's the second episode of Tuesday Night Football. I'm joined by Robert Schmitz. Schmitz, did I say that right?
You did. You nailed it.
And Lorin Cox. I'll let them introduce yourself. And then we will. Okay, I don't know what the hell's happening. I'm getting all sorts of feedback over here. See, it's already complete shit show. We're gonna talk about a little bit about Sean Desai, and then we'll get into the film. All sorts of feedback over here. First, let's talk to Robert. Robert, introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from, what you work with the Bears related. Give yourself a little plug.
Sure. So I'm Robert Schmitz. I write over at WindyCityGridiron.com as their primary film analyst. So I try to go through the tape every Wednesday night, which I'll do again tomorrow night, and just watch the Bears, talk about what they did schematically as best I can, which mostly comes out of books. It doesn't come out of true whiteboard action quite like what you've gone through, Coach. So this is, or Vass told me that pre-show. So this is an awesome opportunity to just get under your tutelage and learn a little bit more.
That's scary as shit. I feel bad now. Like you're going to be doing this tomorrow. I feel like I'm stealing your thunder.
You're not. Frankly, if anything, I get to learn. I don't know any of the terminology. All I can do is go, it looks like they decided that they were going to bracket Renfro, which is really cool because they attacked something that Derek Carr really finds easy to use and forced him down the field. So I'm talking more in like what the DC is trying to do. You're actually coming out and telling us like, so this is why you don't send the fifth edge rusher. You drop him off in a free or in a bonus fire zone, so that you can try to make things a little tougher for the quarterback on short stuff. You know what and why. All I can do is just try to suss out the general direction.
I'm like, hey, they're running a coverage called finger, which is quarter half, and they're bracketing this side. Who the fuck is that? And you're like, that's a guy named Khalil Mack. I'm like, oh, right. Like I see nameless. We were talking about Jim Leonard in the pre part of this. He told me one time, I said something, he goes, they're nameless, faceless idiots with helmets on. That's how I look at everything. I'm like, I know Roquan because I used to hang out at Georgia when he was playing. And Trevathan's now number 6. He was 4. See, I'm confused because he was 44 at one point, or was he 59?
He's 59.
Yeah,
okay.
Only 44.
And he's a Georgia guy, but he's an older Georgia guy. I'm all confused. Anyway, before we get into the weeds, which we will get into fast, Lorin, give us a little bit of background on yourself. These people probably know you better than they know me. They're probably in here to listen to you guys. And I'm like, hey, tell us where you're from. And they're going to be asking me, like, well, who the hell are you? But give us a little background.
Yeah, I'm here for a lot of the same reasons Robert is. I mean, I'm excited to kind of dive into this a little bit more and certainly learn from a lot of the stuff you know more about these schemes than we do. But I host the Locked On Bears podcast. I used to write for a long time for Bears Wire, part of the USA Today sports media group, and now I do some sports radio as well and kind of dabble around here and there, but always keeping an eye on this team and excited to learn a little bit more. And yeah, sharing with some two very knowledgeable guys here on the podcast. I've got my notepad out in front of me ready to take some notes.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I'm going to do the same because I like learning because, and I've said this on the pod and also last week. So basically what happened was when I was in the Bay Area starting in 2012, really 2013, we played on Saturdays and we would go short week, long week, normal week, short week, long week, short week. And so Sundays are always the biggest work day for us. But when we had a Saturday play on Saturday afternoon, which after that, you don't want to do anything. You're exhausted. But then have to play on a Friday night. Like you don't have a lot of time. So the last thing, and I said this before, and maybe I was one of the few, but when you think about football 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you have like slivers of free time, the last thing you want to do is come home and watch more football. And my friends didn't understand it. My friend's a lawyer. I'm like, that'd be like you working all day and then coming home and watching Matlock. Like that's not something that you want to do. That's not exactly appetizing. You want to literally do anything but that. So, I didn't know a lot of the players, and I used to be like super obsessed with the draft. And then there was one year where a bunch of people got drafted and then none of them played. And I'm like, I've obsessed about this shit for 4 months. And none of these guys, it was like the all-time worst draft. We're only like a few people. I don't remember what year it was, but I'm just like, I obsessed about something and these guys aren't even playing. And I kind of just, I don't know. I kind of got away from it and I didn't know, but I know the schemes. And so, I'll be talking about some super obscure call, which we will get into some really crazy shit tonight. I saved some spicy stuff. And like playing 3 rats at the goal line and how you pass off mesh. Like literally there's a call that we're going to watch tonight where you couldn't have designed a worse play call to have to defend, and they did it, and they actually did it kind of well. So I'm excited to check that out. But I don't know half the NFL. Like the players, and to me, when I coached against teams, I'd be like, we'd get to the day of the game, like, how do you feel about covering Jackson? I'm like, who the fuck is that? And they're like, number 14. I'm like, oh yeah, number 14. I feel good about that. Like, I'm not sitting here learning. And to me, that doesn't really do much. So you guys are perfect because, I mean, you remember guys' old numbers. I don't even know their current numbers. So, and I don't feel like going to our lads every time. I'm like, this guy right here, hold on 1 second. Let me see who he is. Anyway, I'm going to send out a quick tweet. I know the guys that follow me are busy, especially this time of week, so I got to send a little message out, and then we will I want to talk about Sean Desai. So actually, let's get into that. So as I mentioned in the pre-part of this, I know a lot about the 17 and 18 Bears defense. I studied Fangio rather. I have all the calls, know it forward and backwards. And then even though I love him, I don't know much about what Chuck Pagano did the last couple of years. So Robert, talk to me about what they did the last 2 years. Because to me, it looks like Sean has gone back to Vic, what Vic did, at least for most of it. There was a couple of calls I was like, okay, that's new. But most of it, even like the 3 high safety stuff, which we'll get into, they line up differently, but they end up in the same exact spots they did in 2017 and 2018. So did Pagano kind of keep the Fangio thing? Is it just rolling, or is Sean kind of going back to Vic?
So from my perspective, what I could see, and Lorin, jump in if you saw something different, because we're going to talk general tendencies, is that 2018 Bears defense, the backbone of it was Eddie Goldman and Akeem Hicks at the front, being able to stop the run practically by themselves, along with Khalil Mack and Leonard Floyd, so they could run whatever coverage they wanted to on the back end and get away with it. Then Akeem Hicks got hurt, 96, if you don't know the name. And so with him out, the Bears struggled to stop the run. They struggled to stop the run again in 2020 when Eddie Goldman opted out. And that put Chuck Pagano in a bind. And I don't know if he handled it well, because it got to the point, Lorin, I don't know if you got the same place I did, where around week 11, week 12 of every season, depending on the down and distance, I could tell you what defense they were going to run. Early in the down, it was going to be cover 1, maybe cover 3. Third down in like 5 or less, man coverage out of a cover 1 set. Like, they got to the point where you knew you could isolate a 31-year-old Buster Screen, who was not a particularly great nickel corner in the first place, if you just ran a slot corner on 2nd or 3rd down. I mean, they didn't do anything that I would call them static. It wasn't as if their defense was coordinated poorly, but it didn't do a lot of what Sean Desai has done. At least I think so, where he's taken players like Alec Ogletree, who aren't great in coverage, Kendall Vildor, who struggles with zone assignments sometimes, Duke Shelley, who's probably the Bears' worst defender. That's number 20. So 22 struggles with zones, 44 gets washed away, especially with crossing routes by it's basically anybody. 20 who needs small assignments can come downfield and hit, but that's not what you're wanting out of your nickel corner primarily. And Desai's able to mask a lot of the problems in the personnel of the Bears coverage unit, I think, better than Pagano did, where quarterbacks of every ilk were able to basically just pick the guy they wanted to throw at, and would you believe it, we got exactly what we wanted. Lorin, what did you see?
Yeah, I'm similar there with you, where it felt like it was very predictable and a lot more single deep coverages, less of that Fangio style of being able to put that shell over top. And it just seemed like teams could kind of, put 3 receivers to a side, put their best receiver on the inside and just run deep crossers and get Danny Trevathan in man coverage. And just kind of basic cover 3 rules for the most part. And there wasn't enough of that sort of adjustment. And you wonder okay, how much of that is Pagano feeling like, okay, I don't have Eddie Goldman or I didn't have Akeem Hicks, so I need to get somebody else in the box. How much of that is intentional and feeling like he was hamstrung a little bit by injuries or other personnel deficiencies? That's sort of where we're left wondering on the outside, but it felt a lot more predictable, like you said, and you could kind of get a sense of like, okay, this is generally what they're going to do. And there's a coach saying, I'm going to trust my guys to be able to win their matchups with your guys. And I get that, but it just doesn't. It certainly is a striking difference from what we've seen from Sean Desai, who's a little bit more inclined to, again, win schematically and throw a lot of different things at opposing quarterbacks and give those younger cornerbacks, especially a little bit of a boost by winning some of the mental game too.
To pick up on that, if you don't mind, Coach, or Vass, again, I'm gonna get it through. But so
you can call me Coach, you can call me Vass, you can call me whatever you want.
Whatever comes out of my mouth, just
Chris
run with
is
it.
usually weird, and then again, you can call me that. If you call me Christopher, though, I'm throwing your ass out of here.
No, I hear you. I definitely won't. One thing that has been funnily constant between 2020 and 2021, I don't want to go back and look at 2019. I've blocked that season and most of 2020, frankly, out of my brain. Rough years for the Bears. But one thing that's been constant, the Bears were not very good at pressuring the passer from a pressure rate perspective. I think they were 22nd in the league in 2020, and that's with Robert Quinn, who is probably injured. He's playing with his hair on fire this year. Akeem Hicks, they had Khalil Mack. They had plenty of pass rushers, Mario Edwards, Bilal Nichols, solid backup rotational guys that could rush the passer, and Pagano just sent them. Like 4 men, rarely blitzed. If he did blitz, you could see it coming. Like they'd creep the guy up on the line of scrimmage. And what's been really intriguing has been that Sean Desai doesn't seem as if he's improved the pressure rate. But when the Bears force chances, whether it's with 2-man stunts or creative blitzing, they get home. They're getting home at a much higher rate. I mean, I think they lead the league in sacks last time I checked. So it's been really cool to see how coordination alone can create more of that schemed pressure we've heard so much about throughout or like across the NFL over the last like 5 or 6 years, and see it in Chicago, where again, it's not as if Khalil Mack is playing at this extraordinarily good level, but when you get DeAndre Houston Carson, number 36, who's like maybe 180 pounds wet, and he is effectively blocking a right tackle and sealing him from coming inside on Khalil Mack, who's now one-on-one on a running back. Come on. Even a 31, 32-year-old Khalil Mack is going to just saw that running back open, and it turns into big sacks when they get the chance.
It seemed like from Pagano, it was the same kind of like tackle end stunts and over again. And like, you kind of knew who your 4 men were going to be, and maybe they'd loop inside a little bit. But other than that, it just felt like up the line of scrimmage, it was pretty bland. And again, maybe didn't felt like injury wise with Quinn not 100% and Mac banged up, that didn't want to mix through. But like, I try and give Pagano some benefit of the doubt there because we just don't know. But Desai has done so much more creatively in his fronts, and I'm sure we'll go through some of those in the Raiders game where they went back to some of that Fangio 6-1, but with some different. There's some Eddie Jackson up on the line of scrimmage and some different looks there, and putting Mac and Quinn on the same side or going to like boss fronts, and I mean, just a lot of different things that it doesn't seem like it's that hard to come up with just being a creative defensive coordinator. But we didn't see a lot of it from Chuck Pagano, and it definitely bleeds down from the Vic Fangio years.
It's really insane. Like now this is a Sean Desai appreciation thing, but he didn't even do that much, and the bar is set so low in the NFL, and we're going to get into this pretty soon. The bar is set so low that even when he's doing a little bit of stuff, everybody's like, oh my god, like that's what, and I hate it because I feel like I'm just shitting all over the NFL, but so much of the stuff is just like he gets into some loaded fronts and runs there's one where he runs the tackle end game out of a loaded front and it gets free, and everybody's like, oh, he's so creative. I'm like, what the hell was going on before this? Because it's not like
right.
And what drives me mental is like, this is shit. And I hate to keep banging this drum, but like, this is stuff high school coaches do. Like, here's the formula. If you're an on-front team, like if you're the Patriots or the Dolphins, you get into your zero, your best pass rushing interior guy. your 2 edge guys, and then you walk a backer up over each guard. And then sometimes you'll shade, like we did this. We didn't have 4 great pass rushers, but our interior guy was a real good stud. So we didn't want to waste him in the zero because pass rushing out of a zero technique sucks ass. It's the worst, literally the worst position you could be. So we would put him in a 3. We'd put our shitty linebacker. He didn't know it at the time, but we put our shitty linebacker in the 0. And then we put our other backer at the 3, and we put them to the back. So if they had the back, if he released, they could cover it. And then sometimes we were bringing 5, and the back was being covered by the deep safety. And then if you have 4 down guys, like even the Redskins have figured, sorry, I always say that it's going to be something that dies. I was on with Colin Dunphy on his new show, and I think I said the Redskins 47 times, and every time I was apologizing, I think he just wanted me to just be like, just keep going, dude. Like I would stop, be like, I'm so sorry. But the bar was set so incredibly low. Here's what I noticed about the sacks. There were a couple where there was one where Mac just ran around the right tackle. I think it was the 2-point play. But a lot of it was coverage stuff. Carr was holding on to the ball. The coverages was so good. And he did a very good job of mixing up coverages. I'll say that. Where Carr was having to pat the ball and they'd get to him. There was very few plays where he was getting free runners. And I don't think there's a large enough sample size with Sean. And a lot of it is opponents. Like I remember, and I was guilty too. After the first 2 weeks, everybody was just like, oh, Phil Snow. Oh my God, he's so great. Well, he played, or after 3 weeks, well, he played the Saints, which were Jekyll and Hyde. And then he played 2 shitburgers. Well, of course he looked good. Of course they looked good. And so then he got his ass kicked the next week when they played somebody good. And it's like, so a lot of it is sample size. And then, the personality of the offense. What's crazy to me, and I don't want to be this like, I don't want to be like this hipster guy who's like, high school football is so much better than the NFL. Like, you should just watch high school football. Like, I don't want to be that guy, but like who was Brian Niedermeyer, who's was the linebackers coach at Tennessee. He's coaching at St. Thomas Aquinas now. Very, very good friend of mine. He worked under Al Golden at Miami. He worked under Kirby. I think he worked for Rick at Georgia, Rick and Pruitt at Georgia. Then he went to Alabama. Then he went to Tennessee. So he's been around some good ones. We were talking about this morning. He called me on his break. Like guys that just like just the borderline, or not borderline, baseline creativity. If you have 2 D tackles that can rush the passer, now if one of them sucks, whatever, then don't waste your linebacker. Like if Roquan Smith is legitimately better at pass rusher inside than your D tackle, then don't do this. But they have some pretty good pass rushing D tackles. We're not asking for much. Get into double 3s, which Desai calls rush. Well, okay, so just a caveat up front. I'm going to use Fangio's language from when he was at the Bears. I don't know how much Sean changed. It looks like he's gone back to a lot of it, but people change terms. And the problem with a guy like Vic Fangio is, especially if you're going back to his stuff. So when you build a defense over many years, you collect terms that don't exactly fit. Like none of Fangio's pressures make any sense when you're putting them in categories. So like the gold standard for me is Justin Wilcox when he took over for Dave Aranda at Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. They put everything in buckets. And so they took Dave's defense and they made it make more sense from calling it. So, and I always screw this up, so bear with me. If it was an NFL team name, it was a 3-deep creeper, meaning I was bringing a second or third level rusher, dropping a first level defender, or I was bringing a second or third level defender, dropping a first level defender, and only rushing 4 and playing cover 3. So Niners was the nickels. The nickel. Bengals was the boundary. Anything for the F was from the field. B was to the boundary. N was the nickel. If you wanted it to the back, it was a word with an R. For running back, it was away from the back. It was something with an A. And then you'd have like tight end would be T, close or open side would be O. And then some guys use closed and open to refer to passing strength because that's a big thing in the NFL. You don't rush off the field in the boundary. The hashes are 9 3/4 yards apart. So there's no field defense. In fact, there was the second play of the game. The Bears put their 3 technique away from the tight end. I'm like, they must be calling field defense. And I was like, wait, no, they don't have that. They call it Cassie. which I don't know why. Cheat is a 9 technique too. Now, again, that's what Vic called it. But when you're a guy like Sean Desai, who's starting from scratch, now Sean's been in football for a while, but when you're taking over your new defense, especially if there is a gap where you're going like what's old is new again, or whatever the phrase is, bail me out, smart broadcast guys. But you know, when you're going back to stuff that you did 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you can kind of start from scratch. Whereas you go from, you know, if you're taking over directly from a guy, you want to keep the same language because you just keep it going. But I know for a fact when Brandon Staley went to the Rams, he changed a bunch of terms from Vic because it made sense. For example, in the Saban world, usually like acts of nature or a blitz, which makes sense, like a tornado. Like if you call tornado, you don't have to know shit about football. If you call tornado or rattler, that's going to be something aggressive, right?
Right.
Like that's not going to be you're not going to call hurricane and it'd be like rush 4 and play Tampa 2. Now there are teams that used to do that because Miami was known as a quarters team. They were the first college team to really run quarters as you see it today. So people call Miami quarters, but that was why they would call it Miami. You don't have to be in Mensa to figure out that cyclone meant something really fucked up was about to happen. It wasn't like, oh, we're going to drop 8. Creating a cyclone of coverage. No, that's not. So you recategorize. So I'm using the old school, but some of the shit doesn't make sense. Like I know the nickel coming for Vic is punch. Now you could say, well, P passing strength. So maybe that's what it meant. I don't think so. So that's what happens is when a guy takes a step back, you can create it from scratch. Like some of the Saban stuff. And also the problem like Saban has is he learns from just memorization, which I know part of education studies, and I don't want to bore the shit out of people, but I'm trying to talk to, I have Division I coordinators that watch this, and then I have like guys that don't know anything about football. So I'm trying to entertain this very wide spectrum of people and not bore either sides, which is kind of a high wire act. And I don't know if we actually accomplish it or not, but what's starting to find out, I know some really smart people are telling me that people just, you know, we thought in education, if we put stuff in buckets and we tried to do word association, we could, but like high school kids, especially, they're not like, okay, it's a tornado, so it's going to be cover 0. Like they just memorize the shit. They just memorize. And so I kind of think it's funny that we've tried all this stuff of trying to put these things in buckets and it all makes sense. And then it turns out it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. So anyway, that's a long way of telling you that we're going to use Vic's language. And we're going to get into it right now. Night Watch 5. I'm the dude that doesn't know shit, so thank you. Well, it's funny. What's cool about this is Robert and Lorin are like experts on the Bears. Like I could probably ask a question. Now you guys are younger, so I'll try to keep it in the last, like, and probably even before. Like I know about the Dolphins before I was born, but like I'm not going to pull a John Cusack. It's like, well, who's the starting left guard in 1982 or whatever he asked, obviously for baseball, that clip where he asked who the starting first baseman or whatever was for the White Sox. But like, I don't know shit. I don't even remember. Like, I'm like, and to prove my point, when you said Hicks and Goldman, right? One of you guys did. In my head, I'm going, oh, 91 and 96. Like that's literally what I thought in my head because that's how I think.
You nailed it. Genius.
Is that right? Did I get it right?
Genius. 91, 96.
At least you got something right. Well, and it's easy because if I call Quinn Leonard Floyd, they both wore 94, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so
one's got about 50 pounds on the other, but that's about it.
Well, but in my defense, I was switching back and forth between 17 and 18 film and 2021 film. So if I refer to like Trevathan is 59 or there's Leonard Floyd is 94. I don't need some nerd in here. But I'm like, this guy is what he's talking about. It's Robert Quinn. Like,
doesn't matter,
off, dude. All right, let's get into it. So we're gonna watch the game, not straight through because we don't have enough time for that. I picked 29 clips and I put them together in order of concept, and then I tried to go through the flow of the game so you could see it as it progresses. One thing, and we talked about this last week. Let me share my screen here. One thing that we talked about last week that is you see in the NFL. So for my high school and college guys, you see exponentially more in the NFL than you do in college, in high school, is you see cover 8, which for some of you guys don't know, cover 8 to me is half quarter. Okay. The reason that you can run that in the NFL exponentially more than at other levels, let me make sure my remote's working. Yeah, here we go. Is because the hash marks are so narrow. So mostly as a defensive coordinator, you guys want to, like, defenses want high school hashes because you only got to defend into the boundary, not a lot of field. So you can get away with crap. So, but in the pros, there is no field boundary. We talked about this. If you're on a hash, you've only got 9 3/4 less yards to work with than you do in the middle of the field. Really, no, you'd have to subtract that. It's basically 4 yards, because if you're in the middle, you're only shifting over 4 to 5 yards. Where, most of the time being in the middle of the field sucks for a defense, unless you're trying to run halves because you got less field to work with. So that's where some of this stuff is. You'll see some concepts coverage wise. A lot of people think, oh, you see the stuff in the NFL because they're better than everybody. Well, okay, yeah, there's some stuff that some guys can do, but a lot of it is spacing and type of stuff that you see. So anyway, let's get into it. So the first concept is cover 8. It is actually a bunch concept. So every offense or every defense has a bunch check built in, okay? So I'm actually kind of starting with a hard one. Actually, you know what? I'm actually going to come back to this because I don't want to confuse you guys off the bat. So let's come back to that bunch look, because I want to talk about the coverage before we talk about. No, actually, we're going to have to start off the bat with that, because the Raiders have gotten on the Sean McVay train and everything is freaking condensed. So let's get into this. So cover 8 is half, quarter. Most of the time, for you football aficionados, the backside is poached just like quarters. So basically, the hardest thing to do in trips is to play, 3 verticals, right? With one guy. I mean, just math. Take 3 guys over 1. Now, here's why cover 8 is great. Cover 8's great because you're now bunching everybody up. So you don't need to really worry about that as much, right? Because they've done their job. They've put everybody together. So that is the trick with being able to play 8. Now, the way that 8 is usually played, it is not a zone concept, meaning if 2 goes vertical. So let's say these guys are spaced out, okay? And because you have the backside guy poaching, meaning Eddie Jackson, who I know that guy. I watched a lot of Bama film. He's going to take 3 vertical, which now the safety to that side can just play over 1 and 2 because he knows he has help on the backside. Now, Bama does some different things where they check it. Bama has, and I always go back to Bama because 1, I know their defense a lot, and 2, it's the most complex defense in football. But I'll reference them a lot. So usually when they're spread out, okay, let's go back to this look. See if it comes. Okay, so I don't know what's going on. Freaking out, man. I'm freaking out, man. It's like pausing and going away and doing all this. So let's go cover 8. Okay, so you got 3 by 1. I'm just drawing the receivers. Let's say the back stays in. He's up here blocking because they're showing a double A gap look. The corner will carry 1 deep. The nickel will be inside out on 2. He will carry the vert all the way down the field. Now, at some point, he may turn back around, but basically, I'm walling off anything from 2 from coming inside. So in cover 3, you're trying to push guys in the seam. In cover 2, which is basically what cover 8 is, it's cover 2, the strong side, you're trying to push guys out of the seam. So they want to force these guys out. The corner wants to funnel the outside receiver in. The nickel wants to funnel the inside piece out to make this guy's job easier. He doesn't have to defend half the field, okay? Eddie's poaching 3, so he's not really worried about 3 unless 3 runs a corner route, okay? The backer that's dropping out here will wall 3, but he's not really even walling 3 because he knows Eddie's going to pick him up and they're playing quarters on the backside. So he's going to sit flat-footed. So he's real worried. He's more worried about stuff coming inside. Okay? If that makes sense. Now, Sean, this was actually kind of interesting. First third down, he gets in a dime. He brings in 36. Who's 36 again?
Houston Carson, third safety. Yeah.
So they play dime with him. He comes in, and I know he's little, but he comes in and they bring him in. So this is the Mike Zimmer stuff. That's what I call it. You're in double threes, backers mugged in the A's with the weak safety down. Now, most teams can't do this because most teams don't have a Harrison Smith, a guy who's heady and athletic. Eddie Jackson was both of those things. So they show him down. They show one high. So Carr's thinking, all right, it's one high bunch. There's only so many things you can do to bunch in one high. You can lock and level, meaning I got him, I've got him, I've got him, and then we get on different levels and we take it. That's obviously not a good look. You don't usually do that unless you're strong side rotating. Now you say, why? Well, that's because you don't want Rowe covering Darren Waller. Okay? So that eliminates that as a check. So he's thinking it's got to be zone. Unless they spin this guy down late and bring Eddie back. But that's kind of difficult to do. So he's probably looking in his head and thinking, all right, what could this be? And this is standard Minnesota Vikings. Almost every third down, they decide to bring the guy up in the A gap to block one of the guys right before the snap. Now, Eddie can drop back because he's not playing a half. He's poaching Waller coming across. And he can play it because he's got to come to him, right? Because when you run 4 verticals out of a bunch, which is not a very good concept, to be honest, they got to spread out. Otherwise, one guy can cover 2. So people think that verticals come open deep. They actually come open horizontally. Okay? Because otherwise, if they'll just ram straight ahead, that makes this guy's life easy. So he's going to play over the top. The corner's going to funnel 1 inside. The nickel's going to stay inside of 2. Rowe's going to drop out and stay inside of 3. Eddie is poaching 3 from the backfield, from the backside, actually the front side, meaning if 3 goes vertical, I'm going to take him. Corners and man-to-man back over here. Okay, now, I mentioned to you how you would play out versus 4 wide spread out. Now, when they're bunched, it turns into more of a zone concept. Okay, so the rules for bunch are the corner's going to look for the smash, so he's going to play the hitch and sink off of the corner route. Because here's the thought, and we used to tell our high school kids this. When they get tight, we get wide. When they get wide, we get tight. Why? Because if they're coming down inside, they're trying to suck us in to get an edge on us. Like we learned last week, ugly football plays happen outside and deep. And when they stretch us out real wide, they're trying to get us out there to run inside or do something inside. And this is what they do. They get in the bunch, but they're going to treat this like zone. So I'm thinking deep curl. I'm thinking I'm getting under the corner route of 2. Rallying back to the flat, and I'm looking for anything coming inside because I know Eddie's going to take any verticals. It's not like true cover 2 where this guy's way the hell down the field and this guy can get in this window. He knows Eddie's going to pick him up. So he can be more shallow and wide with his drops looking for something coming inside. You see the corner bail. It looks like a quarters concept, but I promise you it's not. This is actually the best concept to beat this stuff. Stall out with 1. And then bring them back inside, which they do, but they have a fence around the ball. Somebody's outside, somebody's inside, somebody's head up to the ball. You got 3-on-1. They make the tackle and get off the field. But what this does is this forces hard protection. So they're going to count. Let me see if we can get to the top and see if we can point. Okay. They're saying, hey, he's pointing. I got to take this guy's real wide. They did some chipping stuff with Waller and Renfro, but chipping is always not the best answer, especially if you're a West Coast guy. You want to get as many guys out in the round as you can. Guys, if you guys got anything to add to this, make sure you throw it in. Also, if anybody in the chat's being an asshole, kick them out. Or if they have any questions or anything that they're asking live that would make sense for this play, holler at me. Or if you have anything you want to add, please do about the players or anything like this.
Well, I know I'll throw in one thing that you've already mentioned that I think is really interesting is just talking about Eddie Jackson in this case, because I know Eddie Jackson right now, if you went and asked a bunch of Bears fans, they would consider that he's underperforming. But watching a play like this makes yes.
I thought he was the best player. Watching this game, I thought he was the best player in the field.
I'm telling you, I think that safety is a really misunderstood position right now, where it's either you're a great safety because you're part of the Tampa Bay 2020 defense and you get to make a whole bunch of plays, or like kind of like Jamal Adams over at Seattle, you quote unquote look like you're out of position because the safety screeches down the field, misses a tackle on the outside, forces the running back in, and everybody goes, he missed a tackle, even though the defensive coordinator is saying, way to stop the running back, and somebody else picks him right up. So stuff like that you're showing is really cool for me to see, because it's
Mhm.
obviously not on the broadcast, where it's a defense that partially only exists because Eddie's able to play it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is, as soon as I saw him line, I mean, okay, so I'm going to be very upfront. When it comes to teams, I'm agnostic. I grew up a Dolphins fan, but I don't really give a shit about who wins and who loses. I got friends. I had friends on the Jets, friends on the Patriots, friends on the Bills staff. Like, I'm not like a homer. I don't care. But I do love Eddie Jackson. I love Alabama. I'm not an Alabama fan per se, but I love their defense. You expand on Rowe being a great fit on Waller. Yeah, walling him inside or putting him basically man on him from a trail position. Because this technique here is you're going to trail. Well, I mean, Waller is faster than Rowe from what I know, and he's bigger. So, and it's not even so much that I wouldn't want to put him on there. I'm talking about from this position. So if you're going to play lock and level, so this is a good question. Okay. Oh, that's the wrong window. Jesus, where did still amateur on this. So he's not in a good position to cover Rowe or to cover Waller, because when you want to play man-to-man on somebody, you got to cover him everywhere. So you want to be outside tip right here. If he's got him man-to-man, he's mugged in this A gap. All he has to do is do that. If it's a lock and level scheme, meaning I am locking on my man and I'm passing off, or I am covering him no matter what. Now, if you played, some people call it limbo, some people call it traffic, where this guy would lock him up and then the number one guy would take the first, or the corner would take the first guy outside, and then Rowe would drop and take the first guy coming inside. But even in that, that's a tough deal, because what's the hardest thing when you combo guys? Well, two guys going outside. So you get this play, mini curl, that's what we called it. That's Andrew Coverdale. You're having a guy who's in the A gap having to end up covering Hunter Renfrow on a route that starts going outside. Well, that's not great. I didn't mean he wasn't a good athlete. Also, there was another question in the chat. I need to have like the chat separately, because I'm like going back and forth. It's still amateur hour over here. So I didn't mean, and then there was a misunderstanding about the corner route. He doesn't have to worry about the corner route. The corner is sinking off and playing the corner route. And if I misspoke, I apologize. But yeah, my going back to my point with Eddie Jackson's, like, you could tell he's a badass. I don't even need to know who Eddie Jackson is. I don't need to know anything about Eddie Jackson. If you're lining up in this crap and your coordinator is having him up on the line of scrimmage, you got to be something, because out of this, he's got to be able to blitz, play a half from this alignment, not get out of there too early. He's got to be able to poach three coming across. I mean, there's a lot of shit he's got to be able to do. But Eddie Jackson, to me, and again, I could be biased, and people maybe you're like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. He was the guy that flashed the most in this game. And again, maybe it's because I'm watching more. Maybe it's because I'm a DB guy, so I'm focusing on that. But that play, and I know it was called a touchdown, but that play where he jumped and snatched the ball out of the dude's hand at the goal line was and then in one movement, jump and then take off was freaking unbelievable, even though it was a touchdown. All right, I don't want to spend too much on one play. Let's go to the next play. They're going to show passing off crossers. So I am admitted as a quarters guy by nature, by my DNA. I've talked about this ad nauseum. I think all this tight split stuff is stupid. And I just think it's helping the defense out. What stresses out coverage? So Vic Fangio, Brandon Staley, now Sean Desai, the guy from the Packers, Joe Barry, who I don't know how much he was influenced by Staley. Joe Barry's been around. Joe Barry was my mentor's GA at USC in 93. He's seen a lot of balls. So I don't know how much he's influenced. Staley influenced him versus a guy like Sean Desai, who's just kind of, or Fangio, not for Desai, not Staley, but they were on the staff together. But I'm sure Fangio had a much bigger impression on Desai than Staley did on Joe Barry, considering his age and everything. But they play a lot of cover two, and it's man match too, meaning I'm not just going to drop to a spot and stop. Now, those clips I took out because they may want to throw up, but they're matching patterns. They're dropping, but they're matching guys, meaning if these guys both go deep, The corner's not just going to sit here in the flat. The overhang piece isn't just going to sit here with one guy covering two guys deep. That's a recipe for disaster. Well, how do you stress out two? Is you get guys in tight split or wide splits from each other to make one guy cover two, even though there's a guy on each of them trailing. He's trailing outside, he's trailing inside. You still got one guy over the top of two guys. So lining up close together helps the defense. Okay, so they're going to motion back. It becomes a bunch, so they're playing sort again. But you can pass off crossers. But watch this. This is beautiful right here. This is unbelievable. Now, I think this may be a completion. No, is this a big play? Yeah, I think he gets open. It's a big play.
It is a big play for the Bears because Edwards drops it, if memory serves.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, again, I'm looking at this is the difference between a fan and a coach. I saw this and I was like, this is fucking phenomenal. I would save this if I was coaching currently. I would save this for a teaching clinic, how to pass off a crosser from three and a back coming across. I don't give a shit about what's happening back here. And that's the other thing about when you're teaching, like if you're teaching backers, I don't care if he lets this guy go. But watch this. He sees three go back inside. He's going to say, whatever the code word is, under. So he's coming up and running this way. He is coming across. And this is why you zone this off. You want to latch on to stuff like it's man when they're spread out. And then you want to play it like zone and passed off when they're compressed. Watch these two guys right here. This is freaking football poetry. Then they latch on. I got the back. I got three coming back. I have the back coming from back across. I'm taking three across. They pass us off beautifully. I don't know what homie's doing back here.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
I don't know who that is. Who is that? That better
That's
not be
Gibson.
Eddie Jackson. All right, because I'm like blowing Eddie Jackson, and then it's terrible. Now, this is actually an interesting concept that the Bears are doing out of this. Normally, you would funnel one inside, but here's the problem: if you get too aggressive on funneling one inside, is they clear him out right here and then break him back inside, which you saw early on. You could see some interesting adjustments in the game from the side, but then passing those crossers off, that's pretty right there.
So at the top, why doesn't 33 carry that vertical if they're man matching? I mean, is he that worried about?
Well, they're man matching underneath. So right here, it looks like it's. I couldn't tell if this was quarters because he's flat-footed. So I think this is back. And again, part of this is one thing I want to share with you guys before we move on. Okay, this is a really important point because I get journalists and guys hitting me up all the time. What coverage is this? And they get like down on themselves, like, well, I don't know what this is, and this is frustrating. Listen, the thing I didn't realize about the NFL was how much guys screw up. So some of it is it's a bust. So it's a puzzle. Okay, this guy played it right. They're all in concert, and then this guy busts. Here's what I think. It's quarters. He's doubling one. One goes inside. He should be doubling number one. I don't know why. Maybe I can't see right here, but maybe he thinks Rose out leveraged by Waller, and he's going to help on this. But
it is third and short, so he's one. The sticks are right there. It looks like.
I'm thinking the corner screws this up. I think he slips and he's like, "Oh shit," and then just lets this guy go. And I think it's a double screw up. I think he's like, "Oh, it's cool," because remember he's got three vertical. You can see him. He's looking over here. He goes underneath. Now what you got to worry about is the old Lincoln Riley shallow sting play, where he does this and then darts up the field.
Mm-hmm.
So he's securing the vertical, meaning all right, he's not coming because he starts to climb. So he's probably thinking like, "Oh shit." Okay, but it's still underneath enough. He's only at 5-6 yards,
right?
So now he should be helping on one because in quarters you always look front side 3 to back side 1. Now he slips and probably thinks, okay, well this guy's got him. I'm good. Let me see where the quarterback's looking, and it's the buddy system. My mentors used to say this: when you do shit like this, it's the buddy system. Somebody's always open, which is the truth. Oh, you got that dude. No, you got that dude. Well, then nobody's got him. But again, if he catches and scores, I'm still putting this on this tape because that was awesome underneath how they pass that off, which is all I care about. Eddie's giving him high five. You can give him a high five. He busted the shit out of that. Let's watch the front. I thought the Raiders did a decent job protecting for all the shit that you heard about them. I mean, there were no clean run-throughs. I mean, this is hard right here no matter who you are. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I never saw like besides like 1 or 2 plays where somebody just got beat like a drum. Here's cover 8 versus empty. So now you're going to get has to the trips and quarters away from here. I think this is a big play because somebody screws up. But the front side, you can see the matching going on here. Now, here's the thing I didn't say. When you're playing 8 and you got trips spread out like this, a lot of times, so if you guys, I'm saying this from my high school friends and college friends that are in here, this is basically what Bam would call clip. And what, because you're man matching, think about this. If 2 is vertical and 3 is vertical and they're walling and he's walling, now, here's what you got to know. They have a call. I don't know the name of it, but you know how I was saying, oh, Rowe can let 3 come back across to the safety, like in quarters, because he's got 3 vertical. So he didn't have to take him all the way down the field. Remember I was talking about that earlier? Well, now he has to because this guy's got 2 vertical over here. So he's by himself. But because he's taking 3 back and he's taking 2 on the vertical, the corner has to lock on 1 if he stalls and goes inside or just goes inside, because otherwise there's going to be nobody there. Some guys will pass stuff off. So as he trail, and I wish I could show you this, but as he starts to turn and trail with this receiver, he can have his eyes outside and then come off this, and then the corner can climb to the next route. The problem is with that stall release, you can do that if he's inside right now. So let's say you got a drive route, this, and I don't know, I'm just making crap up at this point, right? You could say, hey, in, you take my guy coming in, I'll take the corner, and we're good. But with this stall release, you got to buy it, and it's like a vertical. Because there's at some point when he releases vertical where he's going to be turned and he can't get in a position to come off. Does that make sense? Am I making sense? Am I talking too fast?
Makes sense.
Okay, no, this is not the play I was thinking of. This is a good job up here in quarters. Corner's got 1. He inside releases. He's making a smash call. He's going to go play man-to-man basketball number 1. And then they're going to vice this route right here. He loses his feet a little bit, his safety, but they're right there if he catches it. And this is what I like about the Bears, which I hate about the rest of the NFL. And the Bears aren't the only one to do it. You don't see, well, I've selectively chosen the clips where you don't see guys wide ass open. If they do, it's because, like the last play, the guy fell down. It was a bust and they fell down. It wasn't because the coverage was busted. It was because a guy made a mistake. And ultimately, as a coach, you want to make it where you trust your guys. And if they make a mistake, hey, if you're asking them to do something that they're not comfortable in and they can't do, that's one thing. But with that last play that I showed where the guys let the X receiver go, that was just a mental mistake. It wasn't like, oh, that guy can't do that. And that's what you want. You want to put your guys in the best position to succeed.
On that one there, the inside slot goes vertical on the post, and the Bears got burned on that early. I think it was week 1 against the Rams where the backside safety didn't carry that. I mean, that's Eddie Jackson to carry 11 on the receiver there that comes across the bottom, right?
He's got to play over the top of everything.
Even when it breaks inside, and he's got outside receivers to him. He's got to take that number 3 with he's got to split. He's got to split. Now, with this split right here, and this is where you could put the corner inside and say, hey, listen, you're inside man on this. Because who is this? Is this the running back? No, I can't see who that is. Is that 89?
It looks like it might be Edwards, 89.
Yeah, he not very good. Well, he wasn't very good in this game. But so, and then who's here? You got Renfro and is that Ruggs? So he's probably like, hey, these 2 guys right here. This is why football's a simple game made complicated by coaches. These 2 were really good. This guy hadn't done shit, and he's standing out here. That guy's really good. That guy's a running back. Is that I think that's Drake. Yeah, he ain't getting the ball. It's going to go here, here, or here. So he's probably like, all right, I'm going to stay vertical of 1 and 2, or 2 and 3, counting outside in 1, 2, 3. I'm going to stay vertical of 2 and 3. You got that dude. You can cover him one-on-one.
So there's an aspect of this stuff that, like you're saying, is just players making decisions on, okay, if I had to rank threats, I was the offense in this setting, I'm going to try to take those 2 away because they're good and dare the not as great guy to beat us.
Yep.
That's cool.
Exactly. Well, and it's not even so much the making a decision on the field. That is a game plan thing.
Oh, sure. I ask purely because there's a lot of people, whether they're in this chat, whether they're in the stuff that I do, that like their primary understanding of football comes from Madden. Where obviously it's a whole bunch of AI players running to a spot and standing there. And so seeing the human element of playing defense and hearing it from a defensive coach is always cool.
Yeah, no, there is a lot of that. And I learned a lot when I first started was that's why I was so surprised that players made mistakes. I'm like, wait, they don't just do everything that you tell them to do. Especially if your team's really good. Now, this is where clip cover 8 sucks. Okay. Now, this is 2 minutes. This is the end of the game. It is 20-9. So maybe this is a stupid thing to have on. But here, they call this tricks. This is when 8 versus a 3-by-1. The backside safety is going to play man on 3. Or he's not going to play man on 3, but he's going to poach 3 vertical. The Raiders did this a lot. I know in the NFL there's no formation into the boundary because the hashes are so narrow. It's like it doesn't really matter. But I noticed they did this a lot, which tells me either Gruden thought he could get some sort of advantage by doing this. And they do this a lot where they'll put their nickel in the boundary and then motion to the field. Or Carr likes to throw it was right because they didn't do this a lot in the left hash. It was always to the right. Okay. This is the problem with 3 going out to the flat. See, he stall releases. So I'm going to get deep in the weeds here. All right. And Bama's clip or their cut coverage, which is kind of the true man match variation of 8. If 3 is out, it's called Mac in the cut, meaning the Mike, the Mac, whatever you want to call them. Some people call them Mike and base and Mac and sub. The nickel's going to lock on 2, and then the corner and the Mac are going to switch 1 and 3. So I'm going to sink and I'm going to play this, and I guarantee you Rowe knows this because Georgia does this. And then I'm going to push out and play 1. That way only 2 people have to switch rather than like, okay, he's gone out to the flat, so the corner's going to push out here. So then this guy has to push out to here, and then I have to push out to the next guy. So we're only coordinating 2 guys switching rather than 3. Again, it's 2 minutes. They're up by 11 points with 50 seconds left, so they're really playing deep to short. They got less than a 10-yard gain. All right, here's the load front. This front is used to call this Dexter. So here's the trick. Now, I noticed the Bears didn't switch their guys a lot, but for guys that switch their players, the loaded front stuff is great, especially if you mug a backer, which the Bears don't really do this a lot. The offense is kind of screwed because, and you really see this, the Rams did this to perfection. They would put Agent 99 over here with Donald, and then they put their other 3 guys over here. And so as an offense, you have to make a decision. Okay, do we slide to the Hall of Famer, but he's by himself, or do we slide to where there's more people? You know what the correct answer is? There isn't a good correct answer. Because if you slide here, you're screwed. Because all this has to do is one of these has to come inside, and it's a free. And that's why teams do this. There's no good answer. There's no good answer when you're down by 11 with 50 seconds left. But you can see here, they're running a tech stunt. All this guy is doing, he comes to this side to balance out the rush because you don't want a huge ass rush lane. Because like if this guy gets too fast, he gets too far up the field past the depth of the quarterback, and this guy doesn't balance out the rush by coming over to this side, it's a gaping hole. And I know that there's only 50 seconds left, but Jesus, you don't want to give the guy 40-yard gain. You will mostly see when they're loaded, somebody is coming back over here, which is another reason why you don't want to slide to this side. And they'll find out. It's if-then play calling. So they know guys like Desai and any D-line coach worth of shit is going to know, all right, here's how we're going to present. The first time we're going to run go. We're just going to go, rush up the field. And then we're going to look how they adjust. Oh, they slid this way? Well, we're going to do this. Oh, they slid this way? They're going to do this. Oh, this guy bailed the hell out of the stadium? Well, then we're going to do this and bring this guy across. These decisions are made on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And then it's just if-then on the field. And a lot of guys upstairs are like, hey, we're going to run Dexter or Tex or whatever you want to call it. See how they're blocking it. Or probably a lot of the time it's not even said. They know to look for it. But anyway.
I mean, like you're talking about it kind of seems to get lost on people sometimes. You hear this with offensive play calling all the time, but I'm sure it happens with defense, right? Where it's like they get 15 minutes to look at the play again, confirm it happened the way they think they did, make the adjustment, communicate the adjustment, and not end up with 9 guys on one page and 2 guys on another when they go to make the next play, right?
Yeah. defense is hard, and that's why NFL defenses are more simple, because there's more transition year to year than there is in college. And there's colleges get more on the field time, especially in the offseason, especially during the summer. They get more time in pads, they get more times in the classroom. And even if you're a BAM and you're graduating kids in 3 years, I mean, those guys, even the guys that, let's say they redshirt, they play 2 years and leave, they're still in there for 3 years. I mean, look at the Bears defensive roster. I mean, how much turnover there is there from year to year 3 years ago? I mean, I could tell you right now, I count 1, 2, 3, 4 guys on the field that were with the Bears 3 years ago. Sometimes Trevathan, who was a starter 2 years ago, 3 years ago, he was barely playing. I think he was hurt. But new corners, new nickel, and it's not like they were on the bench learning and then they get promoted. They come from other teams, they get drafted. So that's why the most complex defenses are in college. And everybody thinks I'm insane when I say that, but it's very simple. Here's another snap of 8 versus empty. This is about getting matchups. You're going to get the reverse whip route, or it's not even a whip route. It's a flat route in quarters. So this is the same exact play that you saw on the front side as earlier. Mm-hmm. One runs the curl inside or the dig inside. Well, now he runs a corner, but it's so he's coming inside with an outside release. Renfro catches the ball, makes a miss, and then they almost get the first.
But look back at that, Coach or Vass. So you can see it. 33, the corner swirled around again, and while he kept his footing this time, it looks like the safety didn't bite down near as hard. I mean, who knows if it's exactly the same coverage, but
it's a bust because he is playing like it's quarters, and I trust Roquan. Like, if I'm going to watch the Bears defense, and if I'm confused on who's messing up, I'm going to look what he does. So here's what this is. I'm almost guarantee you. This is stacks. This is a quarters adjustment when 2 guys are close. So I'm going to take the first outside. I'm going to take the first inside. I'm going to play the deeper of the 2. Actually, I don't think that's the rule for stack, but we're going to go with it and pretend that it is. Okay. But because he doesn't go out right now, I'm going to buy this route. Rowe takes that. This guy should nail down. There's no reason why. I mean, he's kicking out and playing this like this, but he's playing like coverage. This is the thing that's weird. He's playing like 2. He's playing like 2. He's playing like 4. But the problem is it's 2 against 1. So you get 2 guys doing one thing. But the reason that you do this is because he kind of stalls to go out. This guy would never make that play, even though Rowe's inside out and hunting the hip, and he's not as good of an athlete as this corner. I mean, don't get me wrong, Rowe's a fantastic athlete, but he's not a corner. That's still a better position than him catching this and this guy coming down, and now he's got a ton of space. I mean, Renfro makes Rowe miss, but he's got to stop, and he has to come back into the teeth of the defense where there's people. Ugly football plays happen outside and deep. You don't want to give up the edge, and you definitely don't want to give up a deep pass. All right, we're done with cover 8. This is quarters. Now we're playing straight. They call this quads. In base, it's 4. In sub, it's quads. Why they call it something different? It's because a lot of the times, especially in the Fangio defense, which goes back to the Ravens defense, there's a lot of word association, but here's the reason why it's different. If you're using the same personnel, if certain guys in base are on the field in different positions, it's confusing. So, for example, if you're in base personnel, and this is important, if I'm boring the shit out of you with this topic, you guys just tell me, like, this is boring shit. Get on to something else. I want to hear this. I'm just telling you stuff that I think is interesting. Okay. They call this in base Tite 4, Tite will 4. So let's imagine that these guys are attached as tight ends. Okay. And let's imagine that Rowe is the Sam. This guy's kicked down. That's Quinn. Actually, Quinn is the Will. Okay. And then there's another D end in here, and the nickel's out of the game. Right. Okay. Mm-hmm. If you call Tite 4, now versus 2x2, you can bring the Will, or you can bring, usually it's an interior guy. So when the Bears, one thing to watch, when the Bears are in double eagle looks and they're base and they don't have a nickel on the field, meaning they have a 0 and 2 4 eyes, their pressures are going to come from the inside. That's how the defense is structured. So the point is in Tite 4, Tite will 4. Oh, help me out here. 44. Ogletree. You guys are the man. See, this is why I have you guys. You guys are the best. He rushes. I have the quarter flat. Rowe has the quarter flat. Quinn has the quarter flat. We're playing quarters, right? Now all of a sudden it's sub. It's nickel, 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 nickel. And you call 4, and these guys got to be like, oh shit, K, it's nickel. So I'm now the end. I'm not the Sam anymore. That's hard. So let's give something that reminds us of 4, but has a different name, so it doesn't confuse the shit out of anybody. Also confusing is in this formation. So they're going to show 3, and then he's going to buzz back. This is the hardest play in this coverage. I struggled with it in high school. Everybody I know that runs quarter struggles with it, and I'll tell you how to defeat it real quick. Okay, for my high school boys, I'll teach you how to defend this. And really for any level. In quarters, technically, one of these guys would be an insert, but now Rowe has the flat. So he's now doing, in theory, he's now doing Khalil's job, and Khalil is doing possibly his job, and that's why there's different names. Because I didn't understand at first. I'm like, okay, why is it 4 in base? Like Bama, same thing. When they go from one coverage to another, they have to word associate because it confuses the shit out of people. All right, this play is hard. Here's why it's hard. Okay, just line this guy back up here. You're playing quarters. It doesn't matter if you're in halves or quarters or whatever. Okay? The backer, the Mike, who right now is this guy, has to match 3 fast. If he doesn't, you have 1, 2 guys short on 3 guys. Let's just say stick, the number 1 3-step game in football. If the backer doesn't match 3 fast and take the stick, and then he pushes out to the flat and the corner stays here, you're down a guy. So what they do, tales old as time, like the damn movie. They're gonna get you over here. They're gonna get him out of the box because you want to do this to the. And what's great about the NFL is, and this is why hashes matter in the NFL, is you have more space. In high school, you'd only have a little bit of space to work with in the boundary. Now they have the whole damn field. The nickel's outside leverage, so he's going to come and kick him out. He's going to come and kick him out, and then this guy's going to catch the ball and get inside. So how do you beat this play? This guy has to it's a race against time. This guy has to recognize that it's a screen, and he has to get to this number 1 receiver before this guy can get to him. It's literally a game. It's a race, and it's hard. Now, this is my message for my high school kids, my high school guys, because I get this question a lot. If you're seeing this into the boundary and you got wide-ass hashes, play press cover 2. Why? Why do you think, let me ask you guys, why do you think playing press cover 2 could help against defend this play? I'm gonna put your ass on the spot. And if you don't figure it out, don't worry. I've asked this to coaches that have been coaching football for 30 years and they haven't figured it out. Let's see if I'll give you guys a second. Why would playing press cover 2, even press quarters, why would that help defend this play?
Is it as simple as I would think it would be, that you could just take 20, who's Duke Shelley, for instance, that you said it was a race against time, that he's got to get to the 1 before the 1 gets to him, and press, you literally do that. Like, he gets to him immediately, right?
No, let's say he gets and blocks him.
Okay.
So he gets the corner. But why would it help defend this play? How could you get this guy involved more in the passing game by playing press? Let's see if y'all can figure it out. Anybody in the chat? We've introduced now a quiz show into this. Tell me why that pressing would help. Give another 5-10 seconds. If you guys have the answer, go for it. Give it to me. I wish I had the Jeopardy music. I'm gonna have like a soundboard and everything soon. All right. I'll answer this. Here's why pressing helps on this. Imagine you're under the boundary. Okay? It doesn't matter whether you're in the boundary or not. This guy's playing quarters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's playing halves. And you can even do it out of halves. We did it out of halves. Okay? And sometimes it looks, because he's disguising, it looks like he's playing cover 2, but really I think he's playing palms, which is 2 read, which is quarters. But if 2 comes out, the corner jumps it and the safety's over the top. Why do I think that? Because in 2 deep zone, this guy has to be more inside and this guy would be squatted down. So safeties lie, corners tell the truth. Okay? So the reason that playing in press would get Eddie Jackson involved is because with this corner off, this guy can make it look like a route, right? And he can block him. So Eddie's like, oh shit, 2's out. I got to get over the top of 1, right? Oh shit, he's in. By the time he recognizes this guy's got the ball and he's getting north, right? Mm-hmm. What happens when this guy plays press? This guy has to flatten out his block. So now Eddie's looking and he sees two go out. Now that's not a route, right? Imagine that guy's a corner. He's coming flat and this guy is stopped and looking at the ball. Can either of these guys go vertical now?
No.
So now he can go fly down.
Yeah,
It's
just downhill.
that makes sense. So it's as simple as you don't let them you don't let them pretend to do something because that wide receiver suddenly snaps to, oh shit, okay, I don't have time to fake this. I've got to go take my assignment out, and just shifts over and tries to hit the block, which Eddie reads out and immediately goes, so it's a screen. Got it. And flies down to cover.
And the best coordinators are the ones that there's like horizontal thinking versus vertical thinking. And now I'm going to screw this up, but there's an old Riddle actually was helping a guy game plan this week that I told him. I won't get into it. It's long. But basically, a lot of people problem solve, like myself, get so focused on getting this guy to beat the convoy, right? We got to get him out there. How do we get him out here? Well, you line him up outside, and this guy flares. Now he runs a slant, and that's going for a mile, right? Well, you solve it another way. You don't focus on this. You focus on this, getting him down, which cleans the read up for him. And so, I mean, he's seeing this. He's sideways, and if he's chasing it, like you're saying, which you don't want to do too much, because if he chases it and runs the circle, this guy catches it. If he gets a piece of him, he can get back outside. So that's where you got to be careful. Okay. But now you got a safety who, while you're doing all this bullshit and releasing sideways and doing all this, I can now fly up the field and go make a play. So anyway.
Less space means there's less for the safety to read, essentially.
Yeah. Because, well, and he can make it look like a wheel. And that's how you get screen and go. It's really freaking hard to run a good looking screen and go. You can't, you're going to run backwards and then forwards. Right. No. And Eddie knows if he's pressed, So if he goes up like this, like he's going to block, he's thinking that's bullshit. He ain't blocking it. And he can get, it cleans up the reads. It's the same reason why I always advise at the high school level playing a 7 technique or a 6 technique with your ends, playing head up to inside rather than outside. Because if you play outside, the tight end can step down and then wheel back out. He can release inside, then go back out. But if you're inside or right on his ass, he can't fuck around too much before you're in the backfield. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
All right, enough bullshit. Let's move on. All right, here's a little Stubbie matchup. So Stubbie is a check out of quarters. I'll say this. Gruden did a really good job screwing with the side early. He got 21 personnel, and this is mistagged. This should be 21, not 11, so that's my fault. He got into base personnel looks because I had heard a lot of people say, oh, Desai did a great job of adjusting. Well, what does that mean? Early on, and again, we're not watching the game in chronological order, and this is something that you do kind of lose when you do like this, but I wasn't going to watch 60 plays. We would be here all night. But he started defending in base, and then Gruden, which is an old West Coast staple, got into 21 personnel and then was going empty and shit. And so this is the advantage of having personnel is he went big nickel. And so he brought in 36. Help me out again. What's his name?
26, Deion Bush.
36 is Houston Carson.
36, yeah. Or 20. They brought Deion Bush and what's the other guy's name?
DeAndre Houston Carson.
And they left the linebackers in. And what that enabled them to do is get a bigger body, but they weren't stuck in a 3-4 structure. Because if you're stuck in a 3-4 structure, by the way, they said the backup quarterback in the NFL was the best position to play. Like the best thing in football because you hold the clipboard. With the amount of injuries that happen now, I don't agree. The best is playing nose tackle on the 3-4 because you're on the field for like 7 plays. It's awesome. All right. So they did a good job. Here's regular nickel, but you'll see this. So this is Stubbie. So Stubbie is a trips check. It's been around for a very long time. It's gained prominence over the last few years, but this goes back to the late 80s, 90s. And you'll see Desai do this a little bit, which is a little different than you'll see some other coordinators do. This is a very college-y concept. Now, I know it's been done in the NFL for a while, but I haven't seen it as much. The corner is going to buy all of 1. The nickel has the vertical of 2 or the out of 2 or 3. So he's going to carry 2 until 3 comes out or 2 goes out. Then the safety is going to take 3 man-to-man. And then the backside, he'll play the B-gap run or he'll double the X. Now, here's what's interesting. Most teams that run Stubbie The people call this, and the running joke on the podcast, by the way, I have a podcast to make defense great again. That's why people even know who the hell I am. I haven't even mentioned it yet. But Stubbie is usually in the open field, and then you run a coverage called stump when you get to the red zone. And it's because everybody and their brother runs Indy, Buffalo 7, whatever, the chair route, whatever you want to call it, where you get double in corner route. So you want the corner to bail so he can play the corner. They don't actually do this, which is doubly interesting because, one, that's a fullback, and two, you're down in the red zone. But you can see safety has Eddie Jackson played this in college all the time. So if I remember correctly, Eddie was usually the weak safety, but he's probably learned it all. He plays that perfectly. The corner's going to buy the inside route. Boom. He's going to sit on this. Now, some guys, supposed to happen is he's supposed to peel off and help on this, and the backer takes two coming back inside. He sees it late. Carr gives him the eyes. He gets the ball out to the weak safety, and he knocks the ball out. So basically what ends up happening on the backside with Bush is he's doubling the X. He's supposed to be doubling the X. But I think what's happening here is they're basically kind of putting him on the back because it's Jacobs. So they're probably like, hey, is that Rowe? They probably don't want, because see how straight back Rowe is? Is that Rowe or is this Rowe? I can't tell. I'm sorry.
This, middle smaller ones, Rowe.
Between the hashes is Rowe, yeah.
All right, so that's Rowe. So they're probably like, hey, we don't want you on Josh Jacobs because we saw how that worked out in college. So you're going to kind of sit here. You're going to bracket anything coming back inside. But if he doesn't threaten you right now, again, this guy, that's Edwards, right?
Yep.
89, he ain't very good. So this guy is more of a threat down here than this guy. Or this guy's better. I don't know. This is where I'm completely lost because I don't care, to be honest. But I don't know. But I know the 89 is not very good. And this guy is good. So I'm going to basically look here. Okay, yeah, they run an inside route, but he ain't looking at it. All right, I'm going to latch onto this, go and make the pass break up.
Is there an element of this that also comes down to Desai kind of placing a bet on Carr's throwing tendencies? Because when we look at this, the Bears have basically, it's almost as if they made the decision, look at where 26 is right now, that they're not going to allow an in-breaking kind of like a post look into the end zone. They're not going to allow anything over the middle. Roquan's there for a harsher slant out to the side from the tight end, and other linebackers are there to pick up anything else that breaks inside. Like, they want to make Carr. Is there an element of this that's like, just make Carr do something that maybe he doesn't want to do? Like, we'll play the check down, we'll play the quick breaking route, we'll play the quick stuff over the middle, and if he does something else, he does something else. Is there an element of that, or does that kind of stuff get played over by journos?
There could be, not being in the room, and that's one thing you'll learn for guys who are new here that are joining, because you two lovely gentlemen are here and they have no clue who I am. I am like the king of I don't know, because I don't want to give bad information, especially in my world. Like, if you got, and this is, I'm not trying to minimize what you guys do one iota, but if you're on the radio or on a podcast or whatever, and somebody asks you questions and you maybe make a mistake, the guy learns a bad fact. If I come out and say, oh yeah, that's because I'm advising people that are going to tell what I say and go teach a bunch of kids, like, I'm like, I don't know, man. I'll get you the answer, but I'm afraid because last thing I want to do is, like, I'm not, like, when you guys, like, if you guys give a wrong answer, you're not going to disappoint children. Like, so I'm like, always like, I'm not sure. I don't know. Here's what I can say. My gut tells me to answer this a different way. In 3x1, okay, Waller's usually the third guy, or he's the X receiver. Here's my guess. They're looking at this and evaluating threats right now, which is even more puzzling why the corner doesn't bail. Maybe it's not in their defense. I don't know. But if you look at this, you go, all right, who's the number one threat? This guy right here. Ruggs is a vertical threat. Well, shit, we're on the 13-yard line, 12-yard line. Okay, whatever, 13. He's not going to burn us, okay? That guy's the biggest threat. This guy is the least likely threat. This guy is the second least likely. I'm worried about 1, 2, 3. Now, that's just my gut. I can't tell you that for certain. But here's what I think is happening. Okay. You never throw late across the middle, right? That's like, unless it's everything breaks down and scramble. I mean, like in a progression. Like it's like 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm out. Now all bets are off. But here's what I'm seeing. I'm watching Bush. He's looking front side. Carr's looking front side. So he's not going to bang a slant here, right? So he's like, all right, that may be an in-breaking route, but I got to worry about this. And because the backers are playing with more zone integrity down here, if he turns and throws this, there's nobody there. So I think that's just smart football play, reading the eyes. Now, I guarantee your ass, if Carr looked over here first, he ain't coming down and playing that back.
Yeah.
So there's an element of free. So when you're Megan Cohen, so the strict rules on the backside, and this is where you can do more shit in the NFL. So, and I don't know how Sean or Vic teaches this, but the main rules on the backside of Stubbie, and I don't know what they call this, is I'm reading the release of the X. If he is outside, I'm poaching front side on 3. Okay. If he is inside, I'm doubling. Well, sure, but you get a ball key, because if he hands us ball off and Jacobs runs the ball, I have the B gap. So I got to play run first. The ball snap, I see it's pass. Carr's looking front side. He's processed all that in a half a second. Now I got to worry about what's my threat. Okay, I guess him coming back for it, but he ain't going to throw that on time. If he comes back to throw this ball, it's going to be caught over here where there's a bunch of people, right? Like if everything breaks down and he rolls this way, he's either going to come across. Well, he wouldn't go across if he rolls this way, but if he sits in the pocket or runs this way, they also know, like the receivers know, like Carr's looking front side. This is maybe an alert, like, hey, if you got a great matchup, like throw this ball. But the read on this play is actually 1, 2, 3 to backside. This guy's dead unless it's an alert. Like, let's say this is Waller. They're in 12 personnel, and that's Waller, and they put some shitbird out here. Then it's like, fuck this over here. I'm throwing to this guy, right? Jacobs is 4. And when I mean 1, 2, 3, he's not like, is this guy open? No, I'm now going to this guy. Okay, he's not open. It's all seeing that picture. Everything's dead over here. Jackson has leverage on 3 on the corner. I mean, what are you going to throw a nice tight ball into the fullback? Now they kind of pivot back out, but that ain't going to do shit. That play was dead. That's the only place he could go with the ball. All right, let me pick this up. Here's a good play of duo out of the gun. This is weird. I don't like this at all. I don't know why they're doing this.
It's almost like a split zone, but duo. That's weird.
Yeah, it's a stupid play, and you'll see why. Desai slants the inside guys a few times, and it's a disaster and a half waiting. The whole thing with duo is, and you'll see Rowe, he gets out of position. And then go, because so the thing was, the Bears read, you could tell they're reading linemen, which Rowe used to do. He read the triangle in college. He kind of goes with it and then has to fall back. But you're not, if that's what you're depending on, that's no. The reason duo is effective is because it can hit downhill and then bounce out. This is now coming across and has to go all the way out. The angle sucks. I think it's a stupid play. But I'm not getting paid, as Mike Lombardi calls it, the $100 million offensive coordinator, which he's gone now. You can tell this is a scheme. This is a scheme. I'm a scheme head because we are now an hour and 20 minutes in this. And I haven't talked about John Gruden's cool emails. All right, here's a bust, 5-man pressure. They call this front magic. So magic is basically, it's whatever you want it to be. 3 down. They call this guy the X, and they're just going to do a bunch of stuff. I believe they call this twist. I think this is the play where he's up and under, he's coming around, and then he's setting a pick for Mac, and then he's staying outside. This is a coverage bust. I gotta get rid of that. That's terrible. Sorry. You see Eddie's getting pissed. He's like, all right. So I believe that they're comboing this because of how deep Eddie is, meaning we're gonna like if he goes out, you're gonna take the first outside and I'll take your guy or whatever. But Eddie's pointing out there, and again, if there's somebody that I'm gonna trust, it's gonna be Agent 52, Agent 58, and number 4. Those are the first 3 guys I'm looking at. Maybe it's just bias, but you could see he's pointing over there. wide open. This is the danger of comboing guys. But you can tell they're comboing because they're all off the ball and kind of reading it. Like this guy's bailing, like it's zone. He's kind of slow. So this is a bust.
So what's supposed to happen?
I can't 100% say,
Yeah,
but I'm
sense.
guessing the corner is supposed to take him. He's going to take this guy, and then I'm going to work to number 3 coming inside, which, again, Gruden did a really good job in the man. Like, Gruden did well. They did well when they played bunch because, again, the hardest thing when you're comboing people is to send 2 people in the same direction, which is what they do. They send Renfrow out and Waller out. So now you're trying to – what would have to happen is this guy would have to slide out and take here, and he would have to take the next guy. Well, that's very hard in paper, let alone in real life when you have really good route runners. I mean, Renfrow is really good. I mean, for what he does, the intermediate stuff he does, he's fantastic at it.
But Jackson's pointing out because he wants somebody else to get out there.
Yeah, he's like, hey, man, what the hell are you doing? All right, this is I think, just a – oh, no, I'm trying to remember. This is a bad matchup, I believe. Well, I have it. It's this bad matchup. So they're rushing. They're playing cover 1. They're an empty. It's a disaster. So this is what I'm talking about matchups. Okay. You have Ogletree on Ruggs 1-on-1. Not a winning business model. This is country-ass straight man. This guy's bailing, but it's cover 1. They're rushing 5, so they're running a game in here. But you got Ruggs on Ogletree. Not good. And that's just, I don't know. I mean, let's look at the matchups from the end zone. Or actually, no, we can't see the matchups. Okay, you're really screwed here because this is where Gruden did a really good job. So you have Jacobs on a corner. You have the nickel on Renfrow. And then you have one of the fastest guys maybe in the league. Maybe. I don't know. Like, the one thing I'm going to say is I don't tolerate nerds speaking here. Like, actually, the next gen stats say that Ruggs is the 8th fastest guy in the league. And I don't give a shit. That's like, you're not just saying that preemptively. I don't care. But you've got, I mean, you have a backer on Ruggs. But then again, what are you going to do? Put the corner in on Ruggs and then the backer on out here? Well, now Jacobs is going to run by him out here. I guess that would be a better throw because he's shorter. And he's not used to running fade routes, and you give away what you're doing. I mean, that's kind of the thing is that's why they do this stuff. They did a really good job of scheming up the Bears when they would get into 12 and 11 personnel or 21 personnel and getting into 10 personnel looks or getting in 11 and getting into empty looks. They did a really good job of getting matchups, which is why one of the adjustments is they just played more zone and lived with it. That's when you want to live with it. I always bitch. Anybody that follows me knows I bitch about zone coverage and guys just spot dropping. That's when it's like, okay, what's better, putting 44 on Agent 11 or just like dropping to a zone and just hoping to God that something happens? All right, this is an interesting play to me. This is base. They ran a couple snaps of base. This is early in the game. So one of the adjustments that Desai made when he realized, hey, the Raiders tried to get in 21 personnel and run the ball down the Bears' throats, and the Bears choked them out. And then he realized, hey, they're getting in 21 personnel. To me, the vibe I got was they were giving a little to give a little. So the Raiders lined up in 21, ran a couple snaps of inside zone, and then to like be like, hey guys, we're running the ball in 21. Just letting you know, we're gonna run the ball. Just letting you know, guys, look over here, we're running the ball. But to do this shit, so they'd get into 21 personnel, 2 backs and a tight end. They were shifting in 10 personnel looks, and now you're stuck. This is tight will 6, meaning we're playing tight. We're playing 0s and 4s, 4 eyes, 5s, tight 5s. It changes depending on the opponent, what the run game is, a million factors. They're playing quarters. So they're actually going to rush the edge guy, which I'm not a huge fan of out of this look. But then again, this is where in the NFL, you got Khalil Mack. You want to rush Roquan because the structure of the defense, like this was college, you would switch this. The jack would walk out and the backer would rush. Actually, I'd want to rush the guy away from the back because in quarters, if the back is fast, you got to match it, right? We talked about that already. Well, so if I got to rush a guy, let's rush the guy away from the back. So what should happen, like if this was Alabama's world, the jack walks off, Rose the back is in the coverage. They rush this guy, and they're still play quarters. But that is however much money Khalil Mack is making a year. rush will live with it. Now, the Bears, a lot of times in quarters, they're playing. Actually, I'm sorry. This is a mistake on my end. They're playing quarter, half. They're playing quarters to the field, playing their stack a lot. I mean, you could tell. Is this 99? What's his name? I'm sorry.
Travis Gibson, backup outside linebacker.
So here's what was interesting. This was only the 9th play on defense. Early in the game, Desai was emptying the backups. There's 5 backups in on this play. So Quinn and Mack are out. Hicks is out. I think is Eddie Jackson. No, yeah, Eddie Jackson's right there. The corners are in, Rowe is in, but they had the backup. I think they had one of the linebackers in, but the line is all different. 97, 95. Well, 95 is a starting nose tackle. I thought he was a backup because he's never in the game. But they had a bunch of backups in. It was only the 9th play of the game. But after this, I think this is the last snap of base they played versus 21 personnel. No, this was. Okay, this was all. This is actually 22 personnel. So now you have 2 tight ends, 2 backs, and a receiver. Okay, this is a great call. Terrible technique. So the call was awesome. Desai wasn't fooled. He's like, they're not running the ball. He's going to take a shot. Now it's a huge play. I think it's a 30-yard gain for the Raiders. But the call is awesome. The technique just sucks. And this is where one of the things with being a fan is I want to help educate. Is like just because it was a 30-yard gain doesn't mean it was a bad call. I'm not one of those guys, well, it was a bad call because it didn't work. No, that's bullshit. If a guy falls down and plays shitty technique, yeah, it's a bad call. Like this guy, this corner, or whoever this is, I can't really tell. He's baiting. He should sink off. There's no threat out here. Keep sinking backside corner rolls. Everything goes away. You look for something coming back. I mean, these guys pass these routes off. This is beautiful. If this guy keeps getting depth, he makes that play. He misses it. The fastest guy on their team gets it, and they get a 30-yard gain. But in terms of like knowing, like this is one of those calls, like when the call starts, decides like, hell yeah, I got your ass. You thought I was going to get in, you were going to get in heavy personnel and run the ball, and they called cover 2. But even on backside corner rolls, even if it's cover 2, this. I mean, my high school kids knew this. You keep sinking. There's nothing threatening your back. It's not like you're going to get throwback. Everything is going away from you. There's nobody that can like leak out and come over here. Everything is coming back. Keep sinking. Man. And there it is. And he almost gets there. Still a great call. I don't give a shit what happens. It's still a great call. All right, now they got
sense.
All right, let's talk 40 package. We talked about this last week. This is what's funny. Well, I talked to somebody that has intimate knowledge of the Bears and what they do. And I said, hey, are you still doing this package? And they're like, no. And then I turned it on and they're still doing this package. So this is how they did the 40 package. So we talked about this. If you're interested in this, we talked a lot about this last week. The Patriots did this against McVay in the Super Bowl and the Rams. Fangio, I think Belichick actually got the idea from Fangio. They busted this out versus the Rams in 2018. It's a 6-1 with quarters or 3 deep. Now, Fangio did more out of it than Belichick did because Belichick used it as like a 1-game adjustment. Fangio had it as a package and used it quite a bit. So this is some of the stuff here. Here's what they did, though. They ran out of big nickel. So the personnel is you got your 4-down guys. Now, this is what's interesting. They put in some backup D linemen as the ends. So this is remember how I said, this is the base play where they put a bunch of backups in? This is actually the next play after. So this is play 10 on defense. Okay. So they are in, and you'll see it from the end zone. Help me out, and you guys are the personnel experts. 99 is.
I tweeted this play out. It's from the top to the bottom. It's Eddie Jackson, Jeremiah Atochu, Angelo Blackson, Mario Edwards, Travis Gibson, and Alec Ogletree. That's
beautiful. Then 58 is here, and then the corners are the normal corners. So they're in big nickel. What I'm calling big nickel is they're playing with 4-down linemen, 2 backers, and 3 safeties. The corners are the corners. And I counted 20 as a corner just for the purposes. And I don't know if that's what they call this. I know they call nickel, nickel, dime, dime, and dollar, dollar, which we'll get to later. But this is big nickel personnel. That's what I call it. They're running the 40 stuff, so they're in a 6-1. Now they do it a little differently, but they're also running a fire zone scheme here. I don't love this call. So they're slanting. So last week we showed they're going to play a shade here, a tight 5. The Bears, and everybody does a little differently. So they played it more of like a true 6-1. And they do some cool stuff in it at another point, but they're actually slanting. So Vic did left and right fire zone. So they're just going to slant here, which I'm not a fan of because they're balanced, right? And I know that this guy's coming back. So what Vic will tell you, or Sean will probably tell you, is listen, and I'm going to bet you, I don't know if this is true or not, but they had a call on, and knowing that they were going to run split zone, that, hey, we're going to slant away from where this guy lines up because he's going to go, so we want to gain people to the party. But the problem is, as you can see in this drawing, you have 2 linemen, really 1 lineman on the side. Over here, you have 3 linemen and Jackson, and that ball cuts back. You can see the crease right there. Great job by, this is what 89 is good for, stealing safeties in the run game. Now I know why they have him in. There you go. That's probably his best play of the whole game. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be dunking on this. Guy's an NFL football player, but the problem is he's playing with this guy and run throw, and when they split this guy as a receiver, and even this guy is a receiving threat, so I feel bad for the kid.
They talked him up during camp. That's really all I know of Edwards.
Now, this is Sting. This was their version of 3 buzz, which was interesting because they buzz to the side that Waller's on. Again, I don't know this. I don't know what the Raiders did before this. I can't speak to that. But again, this dude's off the ball, so they're probably thinking he's going to come back across. So let's rotate down to the side where he's going to end up. So Gibson is down. And if you want to learn more about this, watch last week's video. I only say that because I don't want to spend a shitload of time on this. I just wanted to show that they're doing it. They're running 3 buzz. Coverage doesn't really matter much in this. You're going to get the over routes. You're going to get some zone stuff. But again, look who's in the game. This guy's a glorified tight end. I mean, he's like, I don't know. They got 1 receiving threat in that really can get vertical. I mean, besides Waller, but they've trapped his ass in here. That's the thing about the snug stuff is, you invite the defense to play tight. So where's he going to release?
Right.
He's got a guy inside of him, a guy outside of him, and then a corner standing outside of him with the safety over the top of him. It's like, Jesus, you'd have a better chance of sneaking your ass around here than you do fitting up through there. Anyway, they did a couple snaps out. All right. This is when they started calling big nickel. I'm just going to let this run one time through because I just wanted to show you. This is when they started calling big nickel versus 22 and 21 personnel. They actually did it versus 2 backs and 2 tight ends. When they realized, hey, they can't run the ball versus us, and they're getting these big personnel groups because they can't beat us in our base, so they're trying to get advantageous matchups. Sean started calling big nickel even to 2 tight ends, which is crazy to me, but it's the NFL. Okay, so I just wanted to show a snap of this. I don't want to really get down these breakdowns because it's just not. I just wanted to show that piece of it. Plus, I got a much cooler stuff to show you. All right, here's another snap of duo. Cover 9, which is what the Bears call. Well, it's what Fangio called weakside rotation cover 3. If you guys are Saban guys, it's called cover 6. They call it cover 9. But this is a technique that I used in high school a lot, which you can see these guys are very good at. They're just slanting. What's interesting, though, is they're slanting to the tight end. Here's duo. They even have to do it with counter footwork. This is just awful. No slants across face. He's in the backfield. Tackle for loss. There's not much else to show besides that. Besides, it's a dumbass concept. I guarantee whoever's going to call the offense of the Raiders is throwing that one out. Drowning that call in a bathtub. All right. Cover 9. I promised in the tweet that I was going to give you a secret way the NFL plays cover 3 to make it really, really effective. I'm going to start off though by showing the run fits. Okay, so the Raiders are in split gun. They're in a I think this is 2. So this is what I would call 20T, 21T, or 21. Some people call pony, which means there's 2 backs. So this is, I think that's Drake and that's Jacobs. Mm-hmm. Every time I see Drake, I think of Seinfeld. Y'all are Seinfeld fans?
We're not old enough for too many Seinfeld references. That's the problem.
Oh, fuck that. I was like 12 when that shit was on. Don't even try that. Love the Drake. Any of you guys know Seinfeld? Every time I saw him, I was like, love the Drake. Gotta love the Drake. And it was fucking me up the whole time. I kept thinking that instead of what's going on. All right, so safety's coming down, playing the B gap because it's now trips. So row, let's watch this from the end zone. Technically, row should be here. They're motioning to trips. So Ogletree should walk out. Again, they're condensed though, which I don't. The only reason that you get this is what I don't understand. The only reason you would condense to run inside is so you could dig people out. I don't get this. I don't understand. I guess Carr was out for a little bit.
That's Peterman, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is how you defend the ball and cover or defend the run and cover 3. It's down in there, beats the block. Excellent job. Seals the ball if it has to cut back. This is fantastic by Max. Surf, make him hand the ball off, then go play the cutback. I don't know why. This is why I hate how they run zone. I don't know why he's coming this far across. This thing should be here and hug this tighter, but I'm not paid $8 million a year to draw that shit
It's
up.
a weird wide zone, but from the angle of the back at least is weird wide, like mid zone.
Here's more cover 3 stuff against the zone. This is why my O-line guys got to get some line guys left. Non-heavy scoops suck ass. Okay, what does that mean? We're not talking about chips here. Scoop blocks are zone away. You're trying to cut the ball off. Well, the Raiders are all like, they're running zone, but blocking it like stretch. And I'm sure, let's put the whole John Gruden shit to a side and how horrible of a human being he is. I'm not trying to minimize it, but I'm not here to talk about his emails. He's a scumbag, whatever you want to say about that. But him drawing up plays, and I don't understand this. You're going to run, first of all, you're going to run zone. You're going to run zone to a 2-man surface. Okay. Which I know most people are like, hey, you just said that guy's like a tight end. Well, he is. But so he's got all the. This is what I don't understand. Like, if you want to run this shit, put him at. Now I'm going to start getting pissed. Put 87 in and get downhill and slam the ball in here. You put a big-ass receiver who hadn't done shit the entire game. This is late in the game, by the way. This is like late third, early fourth quarter. You put this big-ass receiver in here who can't block worth a broke dick. You're going to tell him, okay, you're going to go seal in this guy who's been filling the B gap outside in for the most part. You're going to tell the O-line, hey, we're going to run zone, but we want you to block really wide on a really athletic D-line. Like, if you have lighter athletic guys, you want to get vertical on them. You don't want to block sideways. Watch this shit. And then worse, like, people stopped doing this to TCU in, like, the early 2010s. What people would do on stretch, and the thing about stretch is you're out of there. So the backside guy has a harder time making the play. So now you're going to block like stretch. You're going to let the backside 3 technique go because you suck. And this guy's going to have a tighter path and he doesn't stretch. And it's a TFL. I think it's a TFL. Or does this go? Did I screw something up? And did he go for a while? TFL. I have it for 16 yards. I don't, because I might have, I don't know. Sometimes, it's because there was a penalty on this. Ignored the penalty. So this guard leaves the 3 technique. He tries to overtake him and actually does. But this is where doing what you're not supposed to do sometimes works and is advantageous. So technically, and this is where playing gaps and this whole theory of staying in your gap has gone out the window. So an old school way of playing, and if you don't play in the NFL and you have high school kids that don't have the ability to say, hey, I'm going to do this instead of this, I'm going to play it this way instead of that way, don't have the smarts, okay, is you would latch in here, not make the play. This 3 technique actually gets dug out of his gap, but says, you know what? This guy's out of control. I mean, look at his body position. So I'm going to throw his ass in here, and I'm going to throw his ass so far down in here that this guy's going to have to cut back, and I'm going to go make the TFL. Hey, let's single block 97 with a shitty angle running sideways. Now, of course, they throw the flag and the ball gets moved, but if you're going to run zone, don't do that. Oh, great. You blocked 44, but you left a down lineman. Congratulations. All right. I'm going to skip this play. Here is the secret. Now, this is 2-minute defense, so it looks kind of distorted. Let me see if there's another snap of it where it's not in 2 minutes. There isn't. This is the last one. So I'm going to talk about this more in other videos, but this is one that I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit because the Fangio guys do this. Okay. again, they're lined up way the hell off. There is 33 seconds in the game, up by 11 points. But let's use our imagination a little bit. So, Nichols got to travel. Okay. So, one of the ways that the Fangio guys, and I think it's one of the most brilliant things that I've seen in the NFL that's done exclusively in the NFL, is, and this is kind of a huge thing that when I was told, I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Okay. They call this cover 9. And I think they did this when Eddie Jackson, they actually got it from, let me ask you this. Was Pagano at the Bears when Fangio was there as a position coach?
No.
Okay, then he got it from somewhere. So they call Weakside rotation 3 cover 9, right? Now, most cover 9s, and I don't want to get into the whole thing about cover 3, but usually the safety comes down. He is what you call your 4-to-1st crosser, meaning he's going to take the back if he goes weak. If he blocks, they're going to pass back the crosser to him, right? He's the B-gap fitter, which we showed in some other clips. Okay, let's go back a little bit. Let's get a normal picture of this. Okay, so a normal picture of this. See, they're all in this compressed bullshit. All right, use your imagination. The receiver's out here. The safety's showing high. And that's the whole thing about Fangio is, right, is all, oh, yeah, we show too high, we show too high, we show too high. Well, that's why they did this, is they get into compressed sets because they want to make him declare the look, because the beat, I will, in defense of my man here, 89, is they do have to come down here and show their hand a little bit when they play, because if they really come down off the route from too high, he will be able to block him. So I know why they're doing it. If we get in here tight, he's going to have to cheat down, which clears up the picture for the quarterback. Okay, whatever. But it didn't work, and they didn't take advantage of it. So I'm only going to give him so much credit. Anyway, so normally in cover, let's use our imaginations because the Raiders are assholes and got all these stupid formations. So this is the back, this is the backer, this is the safety coming down. Okay, your traditional high school weak side rotation cover 3, which if you're in a nickel defense, most people are going to play 3 because you're already rotated weak because you got a guy already over here. Okay, and that's a whole nother theory for another day. Whatever. Okay. Normally what happens, again, I'm the flat player. I'm going to take the crosser. If he blocks, I'm going to take the guy coming across. I'm the B-gap fitter. Now, here's what the Fangio guys do that's exceptional. They game plan who's going to do that. Okay. So, if this is Christian McCaffrey, healthy Christian McCaffrey playing running back, they're going to play traditional weak side cover 3, what they call cover 9. And one of the things that I can't, the terms, it gets cloudy on some of this stuff, so I'm going to explain this on the basic level. Meaning if the back swings, the safety takes it, and then this guy is the weak hook defender, meaning if it's trips, he's going to take 3 vertical. If y'all remember the play that Devontae Smith scored in the national championship game where he ran by Tough Borland's ass, that's the picture of perfection on that play. Okay? The hard part about playing weak side rotation cover 3 is a linebacker has to take a third receiver who's usually faster, more athletic than them on these benders, okay? Because the safety's occupied. Now, that's why Bobby Wagner made $9 million a year for so long, because he could play this shit. Okay, he was very good at it. All right. Now, here's the beauty of it. If this is some fat-ass running back that's in there to block, or he doesn't release, or the scheme, maybe it's Jacobson, he's really good, really athletic, but they don't release him. They will tell the safety, listen, you usually have this guy if he goes out, right? But he ain't going out. So the backer will take him, and you will play the bender of 3, right? That's how. So it looks like 6. Some people call it 6 buzz. Buzz rotation usually means the safety is inserting inside of a guy who's going to play the flat. You with me so far?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This isn't the mind-blowing part. The mind-blowing part is coming up right here. Okay. Easy money. You got him. Like, if this guy is just never going to go out, or if he goes out, like, especially if this is Roquan, like, he can cover this easily. Because a lot of times people say, why does Roquan play the will linebacker? Why isn't he the Mike linebacker? This is why. Because the stress of the defense is taking 3 on a bender. Okay? Now, here's the money part. I believe they call this key. Bama calls it sight. If it's a guy who is either really good but doesn't go out all the time, really that's when you want to use this is, hey, if this guy swings, listen, we gotta have a safety on it, but he doesn't go out all the time, so let's not waste it. They read it. So, and I'm gonna try to find it. Well, I don't want to go into that adventure because I might screw this up, but they read this shit. So if he flares, I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna take 3 on the bender, and we're gonna play traditional cover 3 like everybody else has ever played in the history of football. But if he either blocks or he runs an option route or something where he comes up and inside, this guy will take 3 on the bender and the backer will own it. And you could see it last week with the Browns. Now, I'm going to try to do this real quick, and I'm going to try to come back because I really want to. I'm afraid to. Let me see if I can find a quick snap of this. If I can't find it in like 10 seconds, we'll come back to it. I promise you, we will talk about this another day, and I will do an in-depth breakdown of this. But this is what really the Fangio guys got right. And what's crazy is, okay, here we go. I found it quick.
Oh,
all right, I was lucky. All right. Now I got to switch share screens. God help us all. All right.
So
this might be the most difficult part of the whole night.
So it's almost like a combo, like a banjo. Like if he goes out, I go out, and if he stays in, you got, you know what I mean? Like that sort of a read between the safety and the linebacker.
Yes, but it's really hard because it's not like you have 2 guys standing together. You have, I'm taking this guy or I'm taking the guy on the other side.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Keep your fingers crossed and I'll completely turn this into a walking disaster. No. Am I okay? Do you see the Bills right here?
Yes.
On the screen? Yes, I got it. All right. So here is Eddie Jackson, rookie Eddie, or second year Eddie. We're reading it, and you can tell because the backer, this is pre-called, because the backer is tucked into the box, and he's starting to come down. He's going to take this guy out. Okay. Is that Sean McCoy? This is a little old. Okay. By the way, shameless plug. If you want to watch all this stuff cut up, if you're like, damn, this is really freaking awesome, I want to watch this. Patreon, baby. Got it all broke down. Here's them playing the Lions in 2018.
That Soldier Field, all 22.
Yep.
Yeah. You could tell because the backer's tucked in. This is game plan. You're going to take this back. We're not reading this shit. Now, you could see the body position. He starts to take 3, but the ball's coming out fast. I think if I remember correctly, the Lions ran a lot of 2-man game on the backside. Now, here is them reading it. Now, you can tell they're reading it now because the backer's backed up. Well, no, you ran even on this. This is a bad example. No, that's off play action. I want to find this, but I don't want to waste y'all's time searching for this crap. All right, let's try this. I see your Soldier Field all 22, and I raise you all 22 from Soldier Field in the snow. You can usually tell. You see how the backer's kind of back, and he's wider. They're reading it now. He's wider because he's taking this. And you could see him looking over there pre-snap. So this, I'm guessing whoever the Browns had here, he ran delayed option route. They weren't running 2-man games. I remember the Lions running the piss out of 2-man games on the backside. Watch Jackson now. He's poaching number 3 across, and he takes it. And the backer's late to the back. The back chips and then releases. You see how he takes him? That's the same call. That's cover 9. But they build it in, and they game plan how they're going to play it each week. And what it does is it takes one of the huge weaknesses of cover 3 and it spins it on its head and it takes it. You guys want a bonus clip?
Yeah.
All right, here's Drew Brees and the Saints. This is on a crosser. The free safety is going to come down and cut one. The corner's going to bail for any kind of wheel routes coming out of the backfield. Nothing comes. Well, that's a stupid thing. Let me start that over again. X is tight. He's not super close, so you're not thinking I'm running a straight crosser, but more of like maybe an over route or something. And then because the back is strong, I'm going to look for something coming back. I think some people call this tube alert. And he matches the vertical from the other side.
Ooh.
Same call. It's the same coverage.
Vass, we got a comment that said, sorry if I missed it. Why doesn't the linebacker just cover the swing route always? Seems like the safety covering that wide receiver on the bend is conservative.
It depends on who it is and who. So that's a good question, but it depends on what you want. Now let's go back over. I got to start unsharing and resharing. This is telling you boys, this is a nightmare.
You're getting better at it.
Yeah, I was going to say, one of the commenters said, look at Coach becoming more comfortable with StreamYard. You're getting it figured out.
Thank you. You guys are too kind. All right. So that's a good question. Why not just put the safety on the back? Let's go back to that clip of 2 minute where I just didn't like the 2 minute clip because it was real distorted. The alignment, like it's easy to tell what they're doing because it's also like third and a freaking or 2nd and 4 with 50 seconds left. Here's why. Imagine this is normal split. Imagine this is normal down and distance. That's McCaffrey, and this is some asshole back up tight end. You want the safety on the back, right? Now, amazing. Who's that guy with those crazy legs? Like those from the Pack? Was it the Packers?
AJ Dillon,
the running back. Yeah,
the guy with the calf muscles that like the quadzilla,
King Quad. Or
so
whatever.
Now imagine that's AJ Dillon, and this is Devontae Adams. Do you want the same call? No, you don't want the same call. So that's why. And then it depends. Now here's the kicker. Okay, and this is maybe a thing for the Bears. Okay, so now you say, well, why not just call it pre-snap? Okay, well, let's go back to the I like using the Panthers because McCaffrey's a great example because he's the best. I think he's one of the better pass catching when he's healthy, right? Mm-hmm. So now let's say the right tackle gets hurt and Mac is over there. So yeah, the Panthers like getting, and it's not even so much if the guy's good, it's if they do it a lot. That's one of the misnomers with like doubling receivers is everybody thinks, oh, I got to double this guy because he's really good. No, you want to double the guy that's going to get the ball. Even Georgia will double Vanderbilt's receivers if Vandy's throwing to a guy 70% of the time, right? So now all of a sudden you have a dipshit here at the number 3 receiver. You've got McCaffrey, but you have a backup right tackle. And so they're like, hey, Christian, you got to stay in and chip and then release out. Or stay in and block, or you're going to release. Now you want to read it on the run. Oh, he's going out? Oh, shit, let's get down here and get the safety. Also, not everybody that runs this has Rowe playing this position because Rowe is very athletic. Where, some of the guys that run this, they don't have that guy. Like the guy that the Chargers had, or not the Chargers, the Rams had last year. He wasn't Roquan Smith, the inside backer that they were running this with. And you have John Johnson, and then I don't even remember who it was not a good matchup. But now you want to read it because he may stay in. You don't want to waste the guy because it also doesn't make sense to come down here and stand here and give up this bender if you don't have to.
Right.
But Saban didn't like it. They tried it. Pruitt, when he was at Bama, they went and visited the Bears, or they got it from him, and then they put it in, and Saban didn't like it because Saban really likes bringing this guy down and has the B-gap fit. Plus, it keeps everything consistent, and they don't run like this is something you want in your toolbox if you do this a lot. Like Fangio called a shitload of cover 9, a shitload. Okay, real quick, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to try to fly through this last few plays. And I hate to do this, but you can always watch the end on replay. So I'm going to explain this one through, and then we're going to roll. Desai brought in the infamous Penny package. Penny is the 5'1" bear look. And I take credit for introducing that term. Not the term penny. Penny's been used a lot of different ways, but the fact that Vic calls it penny. So they did it out of nickel personnel. So they actually would slide the front over and have, I want to say, and we'll see it from the end zone. They had Quinn play the 4th, or no, they did this with the backup. So this wasn't the part in the game when they were still bringing in different people. So I think they subbed in some guys. So even though it's nickel personnel, it's different personnel. Like 50's in the game because 50, what I noticed with 50 is 50 could play on an edge and he could put his hand in the ground and play inside, which is hard. So they had Trevathan come and be the weak side guy. Mac is a strong side guy. They're running soft fire zone, which is the number 1 call out of Bear College. Even Georgia, who a couple years ago got rid of all fire zone stuff, they still kept fire zone for this. It's simple. It's bringing 5, having one guy over the middle, or rotating wherever that receiver is. You can see the safety spin. So Jackson's down. There's motion, so they switch it, and they're just rushing 5, playing 3 deep, 3 under. The weakness is the flat because you're having to play inside on that. If you're interested in fire zone stuff or bonus fire zones, I did a whole YouTube video on this on one call. It's called Whip Fire Zone. I was actually playing Vic Fangio Bingo and was hoping to fill that card in. I was hoping to see Whip Fire Zone from Fangio, but didn't see it. Here's another snap of Soft Fire Zone. This was probably the craziest play of the game. It's 3rd and 1. They run zone. The edge guy crashes down, which I don't know why you would do that. You have all your inside gap fills. Let's watch this from the end zone. You have all your inside gaps filled. Well, I guess there's the C gap, but still he could press this. Mac decides I'm going to fly down in here. Watch this shit by Rowe. This might be my favorite play from the whole game. So 91 is going to play the backside of it. So technically, Rowe has the front side A gap. He starts to play. Remember, it's 3rd and 1. Oh, shit. I see Matt crashing down. He goes out here, tackles it for no gain. That's 4th and 1. Freak play of the game.
I hadn't realized just how wild that is. Good point.
Insane. He's supposed to play the front side A gap, and this is not by design. You could see how he fits it. He's like, oh shit, and because otherwise you wouldn't bury yourself like this. You could see he turns his eyes up. There's like, I got to get out there. Whoop, no gain. That should. If that was anybody else playing, and he forces a fumble, I mean, he gets called down, but he gets the ball out. Still impressive. All right.
The horizontal space better from the end zone angle than you are from the broadcast of how far he has to go to get there.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right. So this is the NFL's coverage. This is called they call it one hole. If you're a Saban or Belichick guy, they call it one cross. Here's what's happening. You're playing cover 1. This is now going to play with dime personnel. You want somebody that can cover man-to-man in the slot. This is where you want to get 44 out of the game. Okay, because we saw what happened earlier when he played man coverage. Not a winning business model. See, this is a veteran move. I'm tired. I had 2 Red Bulls rolling. Guys, and jump in. I feel bad. I've talked most of the time. I mean, the design of this was to go over this stuff, but like, if you see anything interesting, hop in here. I know it's kind of late to say now, 2 hours into this, but all right. So this is what the Bills did. This is what the Chargers did to the Chiefs. Chargers ran this, I want to say 75% of the time in the first half of the game versus the Chiefs. The Bills turned around and did it. And I was told the story of how they learned the coverage. And I can't tell you, but it would blow your mind where some of this information comes from. But that's all I'll say. But those low-level guys in the NFL are doing God's work. All right, so here's what you're doing. You're playing cover 1. You're playing outside leverage here on the inside. You're playing inside leverage on the outside receivers unless they're tight, which you see receivers doing here. Now, they will game plan. Usually, now the old rules of one cross would be this: if it's 2x2, the safety away from the back would drop down. If it's 3x1, it's going to be the weak side guy, but they will change it depending on whatever the game plan is. But they ran a lot of, again, they call this one hole. Everybody's got different explanations or different terms for this. So here's one hole. It's for the benders. It's to help on bender routes. Now, some guys that are experienced will peel off. So if they see this bender coming, and this is some shit you see with Alabama, this is what's wild. If 2 is really good. Now, Renfro's good, but he's not like a big vertical threat guy. Can he beat you vertically? Yeah, but he's more of a shake and bake intermediate guy. So let's say Ruggs was the second receiver, and he's going to run a vertical, and he's going to run an over route. What you could do is, because is this Wall? No, that's not Waller. That's our friend 89, right?
Yep.
Edwards.
Yeah, he ain't doing shit. You see, he ain't running by anybody's ass. Okay, but let's say Ruggs was in the slot. This is the Alabama shit that you could do. So he could pass this back to this guy and then roll off and help on this route onside. Then the safety could split it and play over the top. And you can see Jackson starts to do that. He's playing the quarterback's eyes, but Carr's eyes are shifting everywhere. That's a near miss. That's also entirely too much time. So I know there's been some criticism of the pass rush. That's entirely too much time to throw that ball.
Yeah, that happened a couple times in this game where I noticed, like, I thought you said it well. I mean, I've had to even change my definition over the years for what is quote unquote a D-line sack versus what's a coverage sack, because the Bears haven't generated many free rushers for years now.
Yeah.
And
well,
so
go ahead.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, basically at this point, I mean, I felt like Carr hit the 4-second mark, even the 5-second mark on a couple occasions that there's not a lot of coverages that are just going to hold on forever in those settings. You know what I mean?
No, and it's one of those things that, like, the definition to me of a D-line sack is if they beat the O-lineman on the first move. If they have to make a second move, there's some sort of coverage that's making them hold the ball. The one thing, and I know I've given shit about being creative, and this is the thing that I don't really understand. This guy could potentially get triple teamed, meaning the back is on this side. So let's say this Hulk of a man somehow beats these two. Now I know the slide is usually supposed to go this way, but if they're in man protection, they're going to set to the nose, right? Especially because 90 is a backup. Well, so is 98. So I guess I'm wrong here. You could potentially have a triple team situation. So if he's going to pass rush like this, and I know they're running a game, here's what you do. This is where I'm going to be a little critical. I know it's hard because you have this guy man-to-man. We'll put him, load your front. It's 2 minute, I believe. Yep, 2 minute situation. Put them all on one side. Put Rowe up on the line. That's not even freaking Jacobs. I know he releases, but like he could cover that or put Quinn, or if you're afraid to do that, put Quinn as a 3 technique. Get him one-on-one. I know that I think they switched left tackles, right? No, they switched. What was the tackle they switched? Because they moved.
They switched the right tackle to right guard.
Okay, so it wasn't left tackle. So maybe you're trying to get a matchup here. I don't know. Sean Desai is smarter than me and gets paid a lot more money than me to do this. So whatever. But there's easy, cheap solutions to get your one-on-ones. But you can see the one cross. 36 is poaching from across the field. And to run this stuff, you got to be good outside. Here's an interception. This is a freak play. Same coverage, running one cross. So this guy's going to drop down. And not even really drop down. He's going to wait. It's 3rd and 4. Now they're loading the front. They're running the text. So the 3 is going to come up here. Going to try to hit it for, I think that's Mac. Watch the coverage. You're funneling that outside. But see, he actually bypasses. And there's something here tells him to bypass, which is crazy because for me, you think play the deep over route. But Carr hangs this up, and that's an interception. And God, that's a crazy play.
Rewind that back. Let me see that again.
That's where pressure affects this throw.
Oh, my goodness. I just can't believe he ranges there.
Well, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a phenomenal play, but he also, he hangs this up because the pressure gets through. He has to step back. Plus, Carr's soft as baby shit. Look at that. Yes, don't get me wrong. Phenomenal play, but look at him throwing this ball. This is like Mrs. What was it? 3 flies up when I was a kid, so we played.
That's a good point. I guess I hadn't even thought about the connection there from how the pressure, what would you say, like lifts the trajectory of the ball, which is the only reason the safety's got a shot at it, right?
Yeah, because when you're designing a defense, you're literally saying, hey, corner, play inside leverage. The safety can't help out there. Also, I'm still stuck from years past. I keep thinking that's the punter. King, the guy that got cut from like 3 years ago. This shows you how much I know about the day-to-day workings in the NFL. Like, I know the schemes shit in my sleep. But like yesterday, my girlfriend was like, well, why aren't they wearing pink? And so I was like, yeah, why isn't the NFL wearing pink? So I was like, yeah, they did away with that years ago. Like, oh, right. All right. So here you go. Now they're in double 3. Again, cheap and easy. Now it's 4th and 5. So now this is the position I wouldn't do this in, but they're going to mug up here. They're going to run a rush front, double 3s, mug the mic, get man protection. Now you got to be careful because I'm out leveraged over here, and you don't want Mac picking up the back. You don't want your guy that you're paying a lot of money and gave up a lot of picks to be picking up a running back to let your linebacker go rush. They do a crazy ass stunt. There's mash here. I believe that this is 4th and 5, isn't it? Yeah, this is at the this is the end of the game. This is the last drive or second last drive of the game. This is a great route by Waller. He sounds like he's going to run up and out and then sets it back down.
Oh man.
And I love this. This guy gives the incomplete sign. Like, yeah, it was you're the reason that it was incomplete.
Always reminds me of the DBs that get beat by like 2 steps. Quarterback puts the ball 5 yards in front of the wide receiver, and then they go celebrating, acting like they did something.
Absolutely. So real quick, I'm going to talk about this, which is going to segue into goal. I promise we talk about goal line brackets. All right. So now on this, if you get now deep over route, he's going to stay on. But if you get this mesh route, he's going to come take this, and then he's going to, by design, going to go look for something else by game plan. Now, some people will, that's called rad. It's called a rat technique, and then a cut technique, which is when you look for the crossers. Now, that's by game plan. With mesh, you're probably going to want to cut the next mesh, or usually there's a dig behind it. Chip Kelly has made that play famous. Usually it's out of 2x2, so you want to look for the dig. Jackson decides to cut the crosser from the other side, which is a really good thing to do. And then it turns into scramble drill, which is also why you see this guy break vertical, and this guy does all this shit. He airmails it. All right, I told you guys we would talk goal line. Here's one snap of goal line that I saw. All right, I was drawing that up beforehand. I'll draw this by hand as we go, because that's the problem with coaches. If you don't start following from the start, it's confusing as all shit. All right, so you got a 2-point play towards the end of the game. They just scored their first touchdown. It is 14-9 with 9 minutes left. They go for 2. So the call here is cheat. Cheat is the front. Cheat is an over front with a G, meaning a guy inside the guard, and then to the tight end, a 9 technique. That's what they call it. That's called a million different things. Grizzly 0 is a technique where you have 2 rats. Okay, now they're all compressed, so this all becomes an issue. Okay, so I'm going to have to stop this because this is actually a great play. Great designed play. Okay, so I'm actually going to draw it beforehand. It's easier to draw it stationary, and then I'll move the play. So before the ball snap, this is what should happen. In traditional cover 1, right, you have somebody on 1, somebody on 2, counting outside in, somebody on 1, somebody on 2, and you'd have a middle of the field safety who's free. Okay, this is traditional cover 1 with 2 linebackers comboing, or whatever you want to call it. Some people call it Reggie, some people call it combo, some people call it banjo. Banjo to me is a 2-on-2 though. TCU calls it a fiddle because banjo, fiddle, it's all instruments. Everybody has their own spin on it. Okay, that's regular cover 1. Those your cover 1 rules that you guys that played freshman football probably learned if you played cover 1. Okay, now you're on the goal line. So you're in the red zone, low red zone from the 12 and in. Playing man-free coverage doesn't make any sense to have a guy in the middle of the field. So a lot of teams, some people do it from the 8, some people do it from the 12. They'll tag like Danger Tag Special. So their term for this old school coverage, and this is where terms can get confusing and people argue me even though they mean the same thing. Also ignore the minus 72 yards. This is because I'm only tagging the defense. The next drive starts at like the 25-yard line, so it thinks they lost 72 yards on the play. So just ignore that if you're looking back, what the hell is this? Okay, so the Bears actually call that 1 lurk, which most people call 1 lurk. What the coverage I just showed you was 1 hole. And then a lot of people that call 1 hole is what they call 1 lurk. So it just becomes this whole confusing thing. That's why there's no universal term. There's very few universal terms in football. Even a term like smash, for some people that's a blitz. Anyway, so that's traditional. So now what you're going to do is, instead of saying, okay, we're going to have this on the back and I'll be 1 rat, we're going to introduce a 2nd rat. Okay. So right now, I believe this would be the 2nd rat. So I'm going to take the back. So let me start this again. Let me draw this again. I'm sorry. This is a long explanation. I got him. I got him. I got him. I got him. Now these 3, usually it's 2 to play 1, right? Or 3 to play 2. Like if you got 2 backs. You have 3 guys on 1. So if he swings, I'm going to take him and I'm going to be the rat here. Now, because it's gun, it's easy because it's pretty much predetermined. Unless he comes back across, then he would take him and then these 2 guys would be free. You follow me so far?
Yes.
This is a really hard concept to explain. So if I am not explaining this properly, please, please, please stop me. Okay.
So the middle of the 3 is always going to end up being one of the rats. It's just one of the whether
Not necessarily. If this guy really, it's a great question. If this guy releases through the line, then I take it and I'm a rat.
Okay.
Now, normally in a rat coverage, and a rat means a guy that's going to play in the low hole, right? In normal rat coverage, the rule is I have my guy, if he goes inside, I'm going to say rat, 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 or cut, cut, cut. So let's clean this up now. Let's imagine, use your imagination. This guy is out of the play. This is normal middle of the field, and he's back here. So let's just say one crosser. Let's just say there's one crosser. So let's say this guy's out here, corner's here. This guy doesn't exist. This guy doesn't exist. Let's just say Jackson's playing Waller. He's got the back. Jackson has the tight end. There's your rat. Safety's in the middle of the field. If he was to go inside, he would say rat, 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 or cut, 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 or whatever. He would pick it up, and then I would become the rat, right? Already kind of hard. Already kind of difficult, right? Now, let's say there's two guys crossing. So imagine, again, both receivers are out here. So I'm going to show you why this play is so hard, okay? Corners are out here. You got Jackson has two. This guy, I think that's the nickel, has two. You got this guy in the back, and this guy's your rat. And you get two crossers. So he goes to run the cross. I say rat, rat, rat. I become the rat to this side. This guy crosses. So this guy says rat, 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 because he hears two rats. This is where it becomes insane. Well, technically, people have different rules for this. He would now pick this guy coming up from this side. This guy would pick this guy coming up, and then this guy would be free. So it's already this is already insane. But this is not a condensed split with three rats now, or two double rats. So this is what it's like with motion.
So you're saying that in this case
goes into this is insane. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Eddie Jackson could theoretically, in that setting that you were talking about with somebody high up, could call rat, hear somebody else call rat, and become a rat again. Or
well, so the problem is who becomes the rat when two guys cross, who picks up who and who, then who becomes the rat. Because somebody then has to, they call it robot, which means you're going to roll under and look for the dig. Okay. So Eddie Jackson is already thinking, if this guy, this is a great question. If this guy goes inside, I'm going to say rat, 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 or cut, cut, cut. And then I'm going to look and I'm going to take somebody. I'm already thinking that. The hard part is who not to take. Who's the guy out of this that says, well, I'm not going to take it because I know somebody else has got it. Okay. And then it becomes receiver threats. So I think by rule, and again, this is where it gets in the weeds because we didn't do this a whole lot. I mean, I understand it, but it's different than understanding something and then coaching it up. And you can tell why I didn't do this. We kept it very simple. Was I think if it's two crosses, the middle guy remains the rat. So I would pick his guy up. I would pick his guy up, and then I'd still be the rat. The tricky part then becomes when it's trips, which now it becomes trips. So 20 rolls across. So in theory, let's see whose job's the hardest. In theory, I could either have him man or have to call rat and become the rat, or now I have to run across and take the guy and then potentially still have to be the rat. So this is already a nightmare. But now the nightmare scenario is this. We're on the goal line. There's two rats, and we don't practice this a lot because it's the goal line. Okay? And of course, what do the Raiders run? They run mesh. And it is covered freaking perfectly.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Now, this guy's open for a little bit, but watch Jackson. So this is where it becomes a thing where here's what changes the math. So Waller goes inside because three's coming across. He's thinking, oh no, shit. I'm hearing the rat from the other side. You see him and he goes, oh crap, I got to take this. And he locks on late.
Oh man.
Do you want, this is so incredibly hard. It's insane.
And that's, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
Here's what should happen because it's 3-by-1. This would take, so I asked real quick and then I want you to ask your question. So I said it depends on the formation, whatever. So the rule is the corner is going to become the robot. So he's going to let him go because the extra guy is here because I'm away from the back. I have an extra rat, so I'm going to go cut anything coming from the other side. This guy is going to end up taking the crosser from this side. Jackson takes this. I'm extra, and this backer should be extra. Now, the back doesn't release, which makes it easier. If the back had gone out here and created 4 to one side, it's probably a touchdown. And you can see he's got it right there. But this is the play. This is where having a pass rush. This reminds me, there's a quote from Smart Football. TCU's playing Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl in 2010. And Chris Brown, the infamous Chris Brown, wrote a quote that was like, you could scheme it up, you could draw it up, scheme it up, draw it up, and execute it to perfection. And the whole thing was TCU screwed up a blitz. They didn't cover the third guy, and they ran stick. And Wisconsin had the guy wide open, but Tank Carter came off the edge screaming and knocked the ball down. And he had Chris had a quote that was like, you can scheme it up, draw it up, and execute it perfectly. And some guy named Tank comes unblocked, free in the backfield, knocks it down, and you go home a loser. And this right here is they've got it open, but the problem is 52 just runs right around 75 and sacks him. And I mean, this is where you go insane as a coach. I mean, this is a perfect play call for a perfect defense. I mean, for what you're doing. I mean, in theory, I mean, you got him. 44 should back his. There's no reason why he should do this. I know he's got the back technically, but he's blocking. What are they going to do? Release late? You know, keep your depth and then drive up. And they get it. But I know that was a long explanation. Somebody might be sitting here going, really? You went through all that for that? But that's what goes into that one play. That's one play.
Man.
And that's where you sit and you go, why didn't they do this in the red zone? Why didn't they do that? That is already hard enough. And I'll be honest, the Bears are very vanilla inside the 5-yard line. They have like 2 calls. This is why. Because it's one of those things like, do you play rock, paper, scissors and just hope to confuse them and get it? Or do you work a few things and have, I mean, this is so difficult. I mean, look at Jack. Oh, shit, I got to come back. And it also happens fast. This is me with a clicker, fast forwarding it, stopping it, drawing up shit. Let's watch this from the top. From getting set to the ball's thrown, he's going, okay, I got Waller. If Waller goes in, I got to call. He's saying something. Shit, there's motion. Oh, fuck, I got to come back. Boom, the play's already over before you can blink. Yeah, so it's and I know that's part of the whole thing is like what we're doing here is we're breaking stuff down. And I know this was more of 11 than being critical. And that was kind of the thing that I said I wanted to do early on was like, I don't want to come on here and shit on people and turn this into a negative thing. I wanted this to be fun and light. And plus I just don't want hate mail. Self-preservation, but like, this is really hard. Like this shit is not even the guys that suck. And I say, like somebody said, oh, they were referring to somebody. It's like, they don't have NFL talent. Yeah, they do. Cause they're in the NFL. That's NFL talent. Like, don't tell me like there's only a certain amount of Eddie Jacksons walking the face of the earth. And the problem is if you can find one and identify them and develop them, then what happens when they're not the most important guy, the most important thing, you got to keep them because of the salary. And like, you know, Jordan said in the chat, Edwards is wide open. He was wide open for how long? Yeah, he's wide open when I got this in my hand and I can stop. But just remember, you have all this shit going on. First of all, you got to get this to stay in the game to keep it to have a chance to win the game, right? And you have Khalil Mack running around off the end. Maybe he doesn't see him. But you have all this shit going on in front of you with all these. One of the benefits I even talk about this call is there's a bunch of people around in front of you. So you're having to spot all this shit really fast. And then like you have a guy who's like 270 pounds who's trained to try and kill you, running around at you as fast as he can to hit you in the face and try to rip your face off. Like, listen, Derek Carr's not the greatest. Okay, Jordan here believes that that's an easy read. Okay, well, Jordan, then you know what? You're a better man than me because that shit is happening so fast and there's so much crap going on. that good luck seeing that with all that stuff and having to process all that stuff. And it's real easy. I want somebody to go out here. I played quarterback flag football team without even a rush, and I was like freaking the hell out. But some of this stuff and the stuff that really goes into the plays here and what has to happen and what is processing and what you're, because it's not even, a lot of it's anticipation. That's what you always say is like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady are the best, because Phil Rivers is another one that he knew what was happening. A lot of it is you having to have this stuff figured out before it happens. Because if you're trying to read it before, after the ball snap, and you have giant human beings rushing in your face, and here's the other thing. So, Jordan is, and this is the other thing that's easy, and I'm going to take Jordan to task here a little bit. Okay. You're saying Silvera is wide open, or Edwards is wide open. He's the third read on this play. Right now is when he sees it. So on mesh, you read corner to flat. So you're high-lowing this, and you're reading.
Turn the screen right now if you're trying to.
Shit, I'm sorry. I knew I would do this. But like, I just want to like.
Lorin.
See, you guys are good here. So it is so easy to sit here with a click in your hand, and this is coaching kids where like it's not even happening this fast. Like the appreciation for this, and sometimes you're just like, all right, like I don't know what to say, but you're reading corner, and if you're good, you can read the mesh as a whole to the flat. So I'm thinking you can see his eyes. I'm going corner, and he's going to read this because it's compressed. And normally, if this guy was out here, you would read here to your eyes, here out to the flat. But since they're kind of bunched together, you're seeing that. This is taken away. But yeah, he's wide open. Yeah, if you're staring at him, but that's not the design of the play. I'm thinking corner to out here, coming back to the mesh, back to this mesh. And I said they don't release the back. That's because it's trips. They don't need to. Now, if it was 2x2, so real quick, let's say Renfro doesn't motion. The play would be, it would be corner, mesh, swing, and then something over the middle. Okay. Now, they probably did it like this because of the pass pro issues. Not only are they have issues on the O-line and they're switching people, they're also facing really good pass rushers. But remember, this guy is the third read in the progression coming from this side. So Carr is thinking corner, swing, mesh right now. Okay. But he's also got a guy right here.
Right.
He's got a guy right here. So if he throws that right now, he's going to throw an interception. So we have to look to 4. Shit, he's not open. Sack. He processes 4 reads. 1, 2, boom, it's over. So he's processing 4 things that quickly, and that guy's the third read. And watch it and you see it from the end zone. He's going to throw this ball right here where this guy's standing. I mean, we can argue about that, but remember, this guy's not very good either. I mean, that's and give some credit to the defense too. I mean,
I know, Coach, that's a simple thing that I started doing about a year ago. Was every once in a while I try to make sure that I watch a read from the quarterback's perspective, because sometimes from the wide angle you can go, look at all that space, and then you look from the beyond or under center angle, and there's Alec Ogletree standing right in the throwing lane. And even if he's a little further up than maybe you want him to be, like you said, he's kind of out in no man's land. Well, he's in front of the passing lane almost by happy accident. So by the time Eddie Jackson wheels around and figures out that he's got to cover the guy that's standing right there, window over, you know?
Well, and the other thing that Jordan mentioned is, and Jordan, I just want to say, I appreciate you, man. You're on here commenting, engaged. You're the best guy in here. So I'm not trying to this isn't like shit on Jordan part of the show. Like, I love you, man. I'm happy you're here. But this is a universal read. Mesh has been taught to be read like this from the beginning of time. Since Norm Chow was doing this at BYU, it's corner to the play side mesh to the swing. But because they're bunched, he's reading you could see his eyes. He's reading the corner to the flat, to the mesh, to the other mesh. And because he doesn't have a fifth option, he doesn't have a fifth option. And the reason is because it's the ball's got to come out fast. It's in the goal line. The other thing you got to keep in mind is what do people usually do on those situations? They blitz. So the other thing is, hey, not only is the corner covered, it's doubled. Because if you're playing man, you're playing inside out usually. So I'm thinking, hey, I can hit that corner route, even if it's man on my first step. I'm catching, I'm going to throw. But because they have those two rats, the corner's able to play outside. So the first half of that is like, are they blitzing? Do I have man? Oh, shit. And by the time it comes back across, and everybody's covered. I mean, there's one guy that's maybe open, but like that, I'm not a David Carr apologist. I don't care. Derek Carr, no, David. I'm losing my mind here. I lived in Fresno, so Derek and David, it all goes together for me. But you know what I mean? And I know you're not trying to pick a fight. It's just, it happens so fast. And like, one thing that I encourage you to do when you're watching this is the best way to learn defense is to learn offense. So mesh is one of those plays that there's not really a debate on how it's read. Now, if you're running the Chip Kelly variations, there's things that you can sneak in. Or when you're teaching a young quarterback, you would teach them to read corner, to play side, mesh, really you'd want to go corner swing and kind of that window. And then you read play side mesh to backside mesh. But when you get more experience, you want to be able to read both. That's all well and good in the open field. But when you have that many bodies packed in there, I mean, you've got 5 or 6 people within the mesh window all collapsed in there. It's not a clean picture. You don't have the benefit of, hey, those safeties may be out of there. Like, you can really read it well in quarters underneath if you have 3 droppers, if you're in the open field, because there's 3 underneath guys, and you have potentially 1 mesh, 2 mesh, the backside dig, and a swing. So you got 4 guys kind of in an intermediate, and you can just overload them. But when you're down there, like, I don't know if that's necessarily the best play. It's a great play design, but if your guys aren't open, there's no like outlet. You're screwed. But you know, it's tough. And again, you're throwing to your worst offensive weapon. You know what I mean? So, and a lot of it is, and a lot of things that we don't. Yeah, I don't know. I'm with you, Jordan. I don't know why they would do that. But the other thing you got to keep in mind is, like, at that level, like, if you're a Division III football and you make that mistake, nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares. But you throw a pick on a 2-point play, and even if you tackle the guy, because the 2-point play is like, it's boom or bust. Like, the likelihood that somebody's going to pick that off and return it 100-something yards to get just 2 points. Yeah, because if you don't get it, it's a 5-point game. If he picks it off and houses it, it's 7 points. It's still a touchdown. But actually, no, I'm sorry. What was the spread there? I'm sorry. I have the numbers. It doesn't matter. But like, you're also having to avoid, like, all right, if I don't get this, we still have another shot. If I screw this up, it's now a 2-score game, right? Or do I have that wrong? I don't know. But
yeah, I think so.
When they were going for 2 to make it 7, I think.
I thought I would have sworn that made the game 9-17. Am I remembering that correctly? It's somewhere in that region. They didn't get the extra 3 until after this play. Yeah. So like you're saying, you throw a pick, it gets housed. You're down 2 scores. You don't get it. You're down 8, if memory serves.
At some point, just throw it in the ground. That's another thing, is like, in that situation, it's like, okay, I can maybe try to fit this in. But if I screw this up, you know, what's the implications? Whereas if, you know, you look at it maybe in the open field and you get another down, or you're going to make certain decisions based on also, is it 3rd down or is it 4th down, or is it, you know, where are you out on the field? What's the score? First quarter, hey, let it rip, you know, was whatever. But it was
14-9, by the way. So if they'd got it, would have been a 3-point game. If they had picked the other way, it still would have been 7.
Okay, so my whole point that I just said is complete bullshit. Just, I'm going to pretend like I never said it. You can tell me otherwise. But I think that one thing that when you're being, I mean, and don't get me wrong, there's objectively bad play, and I crap on guys all the time. But I think some of the times, like as a slight Dolphins fan last year, it boggled my mind that, you know, everybody's giving shit to Tua Tagovailoa. Like, here's a guy who's a rookie. It's COVID, so you have no time to do anything. You're coming off an injury. Like, what do you think's going to happen? Now, if if it's the third or fourth season, okay, it's time to move on. But like everybody's ready to like shit can this guy after a year, and I'm just like, guys, all right. So let me turn the tables on you. Now we're gonna have fan time. Unbiased Bears hat off with all the Bears knowledge that you have. Do you think Justin Fields is the answer?
Lorin, do you want to go first?
He's like, Lorin Fields.
I'll go first, but I feel like I've had the first word the whole evening. I wouldn't. I don't know. Do you want me to talk first? Do you want to talk
That's how
first?
you define the answer, because the answer in Chicago is different than the answer in, pick another, you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't have to be Patrick Mahomes to be the answer in Chicago. So like, I think he's better than Mitch Trubisky. I think he sees the field a lot better, but it's still a little bit slow in terms of fully processing. And there's this, Matt Nagy wants to make him a quick timing sort of, one read, well, not a one read quarterback, but a precision footwork and timing to receivers he had to practice with. So like, all that's to say is I think the foundation is there. I think he still has some room to go there in terms of calming things down a little bit in the pocket. And you would presume that he's going to get there. It seems like the things he needs to work on are the easier things for a quarterback to work on, and that he's better at the more difficult things. So presumably then with the right coaching, he should be the answer. But we've been burned enough by quarterbacks in Chicago where I'm not gonna go all in and say, oh yeah, he's going to be every solve the problems that they've had for years and years and years.
Yeah, to jump in on that, I mean, the road to being a Bears fan is littered with watching really, really awful quarterback play. I mean, I remember a game with a guy who, Vass, if you know who Todd Collins is, like, I'll be shocked.
Old Michigan quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. He got to the Bears when he must have been 38 years old.
Wasn't he got quarterback right before Brady?
Maybe. No, that was Bledsoe.
You guys were
wasn't it?
No. I'm talking about at Michigan.
Before.
Yeah. No. When he was at Michigan, I think he was the quarterback when they had Mercury Hayes. Wow. You guys were like in diapers at this point. You may have not even been born yet. I'm going to shut up.
Oh, don't worry about it. Like there's a playoff game back in, I'm going to pull a number out of my butt here. I think it's 2011. Maybe it's somewhere around there.
Season, but it might have bled over into January of 2011.
Right. But so Collins gets thrown into a game. He throws, I think, 2, maybe 3 picks on 5 attempts and gets benched. And that's what watching quarterbacks in Chicago is like. It's watching guys that are either past their prime or way too green screw up. And the defense, I mean, remember, we won a game where our quarterback threw 5 interceptions and fumbled the ball. That was the Arizona "we are who we thought they were" game. Weird franchise.
I remember that game.
Seeing a quarterback that can hit a 40-yard bomb is new. He holds onto the ball too long. He seems like, especially in that Cleveland game, that he was completely lost on what the definition of open was in the NFL, where he was waiting for, let's call it Ohio State open, where NFL open, it's just a different speed. But he's got, like Lorin's hinting at, so many of the physical, I guess, accuracy related intangibles. It's hard not to be excited about him. Yeah. So given that they traded up a first round pick, let's be honest, it almost doesn't matter whether he is or isn't now. Not only do I agree with you, take Tua Tagovailoa. Like, why are we making a decision 1 year in? I'm very similar with Justin Fields, where it's like, we're going to have to wait 2 years anyways. They traded a first round pick. Right. So the guy's got time. I've become more of a fan of give it till year 3 before you really make a decision either way. But I do kind of get where I think you're driving at, that let's not act as if, kind of like Twitter does, that it's over, put him in Canton, like 15 years. You never know. But it feels like, I don't know where you're thinking, Lorin, feels like we're on the better side than we were with Trubisky's rookie year, where it took some real mental gymnastics to tell yourself he was doing well.
No, well, Trubisky, I laughed when they took him. I was like, they did what? Like, they paid what for his ass? I mean, but I watched him play Miami, and it was not great. But I guess my question is, and it was actually a stupid question. I think we all know that he's going to be better. But do you think he's ready now? Was more what I meant to ask.
Ooh.
Circle back. Todd Collins was drafted the year before I was born.
Oh my gosh, really? Was that 93?
And
I was born in
his
96, so he
receivers.
was drafted in 95. So it's
You were born in 96. What the fuck? I hate this.
But so yeah, I think the ready thing, Coach or Vass, that depends on what you think a rookie should be able to do. I feel like we're watching so many of these rookie quarterbacks right now. Zach Wilson sometimes seems like he knows what he's doing, and other times he looks like he's just lost and has been thrown in there because there was nobody else on the roster. Like,
go ahead. Sorry.
The standards have just gotten so low for when we play these kids. Like Josh Allen, his first year, like he played as a rookie. I didn't think he knew what he was doing. And then he came in year 2. He still struggled. Finally, he figured it out. But I can't help but think that if Josh Allen got drafted in 2010, he never would have seen the field until sophomore year at the earliest. We're so quick on the trigger, and then we'll throw them out if they aren't any good.
But I think that's good because I think the old thought was, and I think the Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre thing was really kind of what tinted the whole thing. But like, is like, oh, you got to wait. But sometimes like you can have growing pains regardless. Throwing to a scout team with no pressure, it doesn't matter how fast the scout team is. It's a scout team, and there's no repercussions. Even in practice, you go to 7-on-7 and you're not counting score, and all of a sudden you're like, all right, we're going to move the ball. Even in high school, it's like, oh shit, like it's time. There's the added pressure, let alone go out in the field. And I think like guys are going to have growing pains no matter what. Now, you don't want to ruin them. But what's interesting to me about Fields is he has the exact opposite problem that every other young guy's had.
Yeah.
To this point it's usually been, he's on a one-read. Say it again. A one-read system. He doesn't know how to process the whole offense. At Ohio State, when you're throwing mesh, we were talking about mesh, that is a full field concept. You are seeing both sides of the field, and it requires a lot of time for it to get off. Unless you're throwing like the corner route on the third. They're blitzing you. You're throwing that corner route on your third step and you're ripping that off. It's almost like they say holds on to the ball too long. It's because in college he had more time and he was able to scan the whole field. Well, now you are not. And so it's the opposite though, because everybody's always like, oh, he's a one-read guy. Like it's not going to translate to the NFL. Now it's almost like he's seeing too much, which is not usually a problem that you hear of. Like, and again, I'm just a ex-high school and college coach, but like I remember one year we threw in Tony Franklin, who runs the air raid, who was like the air raid guy. They took mesh out of the playbook for years because nobody was running man anymore, and it's such an expensive play to rep. It takes so much time, and there's nothing like it in certain ways, especially with the receivers. That if that was their number one route, and especially because who did Ohio State have to beat Michigan? What was the way to beat Michigan? To run mesh. So it's like it takes forever and you have to see a bunch of stuff, but it's one of those things that like it also the picture clears up when you have enough time. And I know I watched his first week, and again I was like he's not ready yet when they played the Browns, but then he came back the next and I got slaughtered on Twitter a little bit because I said he's not ready yet, but it was like Sunday night and he had played well that day, but I hadn't seen it yet. I was responding though to like the previous week. And people rightfully roasted me and were like, dude, you didn't even see the game today. I'm like, yeah, I haven't seen the game today. I'm not a paid. And that's the other thing about my position. It's like, I'm not a paid NFL analyst. I'm a scheme guy that like people are like, you should talk about pro ball. I'm like, all right. Like I mostly help high school and college coach, mostly high school coaches. Like I'm not Mina Kimes. Like I'm not like paid or you guys that like, this is your thing. I'm like, yeah, I didn't see today's game. And it was like, how could you not see today's game? I was like, because I was fucking playing FIFA. Because I can, right? Whoa, you know what I mean? Like that's also the weird part that I have. And sometimes, like, I'm asked to step in these spaces. That's why I'm always like, I don't know. I'm asked to step in these spaces because of my knowledge in one area, but like, you can tell there's shit I don't know. I'm like, that guy, 38. Who's 38? I'm still thinking Amos Jr. because I watched a shitload of 17 and 18 Bears film. By the way, there needs to be some sort of rule that if you're going to take over as a starter, there has to be like a couple year gap. You can't use the same number. For poor saps like me, because I'm like, oh yeah, Amos Jr. Everybody's like, who's Amos? Because he's not there anymore, right?
Green Bay.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, yeah, that's Amos Jr.
Still starting.
I'm glad we didn't do this. I'm glad we didn't do this last night because I would have had everybody. Everyone. I would have been because Rowe was 6 in college, wasn't he?
8, I think.
No, it wasn't 8.
Was it 6 then? It was single digits like that.
It was 6. So I'd have been really messed up if I saw Trevathan in 6.
You'd be like,
Well,
Roquan looks a little bigger than
I'm just
I
gonna
remember.
say numbers because that was a big thing when I went on Mina's podcast. She was like, "Listen, I love you. You're great, but you gotta say their names." I'm like, "Okay, I'll say their," because I'm a coach. Like we talked about earlier. Like I don't care. Like I don't have to talk about these guys. I'm just like, "Oh yeah, 42. He's awesome." So, and then I was on the Athletic, and they're like, "Remember, you have to say their names." I'm like, "Okay, I'll say their names. I'll say their names." But I had like a while to prepare for this,
right?
But anyway,
it's funny you talk about the scout team having no repercussions because I was shocked at that Cleveland game, the Browns game, where Fields held on to the ball like he wasn't going up against Myles Garrett, Tack McKinley, and a loaded Browns front. I didn't even mention Jadeveon Clowney. And in this game, he looked a little better about it. He got roughed up. He got beat up pretty bad throughout the Raiders game. But it will be interesting to see how much, like you talked about growing pains, 1 9-sack beating speeds up his timing or doesn't. Watching the way these guys grow is half the fun, right?
It depends. If they're shitty, then no, it's not fun at all. I argue it's not fun. No, but I totally agree with you. I mean, that is the fun thing, and it's so hard. I mean, somebody asked a great question yesterday. They're like, "You're talking about Justin Herbert," and I think because even though you're a little younger than me, and we've established that 74 times today, but like you all grew up playing Madden, right? You all grew up playing Madden franchise mode. I think it's warped our brains on how it's like guys are going to progress on a steady incline, and then at a certain age they're going to drop off. And if they start as a 78 coming out as a rookie, like I think that's warped our brain. And I'm half kidding, but like somebody said something like Justin Herbert. How did so many people miss on him? He wasn't as fucking good as he was now, and he was in college. That's okay. Guys figure it out. Guys have it come together. Some guys mature, especially you see this in college all the time. How could this 5-star player just become shit in college? Well, you know, he was bigger and stronger than everybody at a younger age. Like I remember Miami recruited this kid, Ryan Anderson, out of Wisconsin. He was a 5-star kid. He was like 6'5", 275. As like a sophomore in high school. If you've watched Wisconsin high school football, there's not many guys that look like that. So yeah, he was phenomenal, and he had like 35 sacks in one year. But then he had to go against an ace, and he could just do shit. Like, what are you going to tell him in practice? Hey, you need to perfect your technique, as you just had a 12-sack game. So then he gets to the ACC, and he's got to go against, you know, DeBrickashaw Ferguson, and who can actually pass block and is as big as he is and as nearly as athletic. And he flamed out. And it wasn't anything because, you know, the Miami coaches were shit at the time. And I could say that because I worked for him. But like, yeah, there's part of that. But part of that was like, he just matured faster than everybody. Guys figure it out. They figure it out earlier. They figure it out later. Or they get some success and they get spooked. You know, what really bothered me is that quote that Sam Darnold, and I get it's fun to shit on people and professional athletes that make a lot of money, and it makes us feel better about ourselves, and we get the dopamine with the hits and the likes. But like, you know, Darnold said the thing about seeing ghosts, and everybody took it and ran with it. I get it, and I get like the butt fumble's hilarious, but like, you know, there's a lot of people that would like to say that Darnold was just being honest, and he got penalized for telling the truth. Like when you're going against Bill Belichick, seeing ghosts, because he was talking about after they played the Patriots, right?
Right.
That's not the worst thing in the world. You know, like, of course, but he was young and he said it, and he's in the New York media market, and oh my God. And he also had Adam Gase, crackhead Adam Gase. I ask anybody that knows anything about pro football. I'm like, I was talking to Randy Mueller. We were talking about like the draft, like nothing to even do with that. I'm like, yo, what was with that Gase press conference? Like, I ask anybody who knows anything about the NFL. I'm always curious, you know, where he's like rolling his eyes and shit. Like,
yeah,
like this shit's hard, man. And this isn't like an apologist. Like, listen, we're fans. It's a sport. At the end of the day, it's a game. It's called a game for a reason. And we can be overly emotional and completely irrational about it and see a game and this guy's terrible and he'll never do anything. But sometimes people just figure it out later. Also, I call this Vass After Dark. Towards the end, I start to say spicy shit because I doubt that anybody sat through all 2.5 hours. I worked with Marcus Arroyo at San Jose State. He's a fucking idiot. So I'm not surprised that Justin Herbert didn't do as well in college. Okay. And if that somehow gets picked up and gets back to Marcus, I don't give a shit. Marcus is the head coach at UNLV. He was an asshole then. I'm sure he's an asshole now. I don't care who knows it, who says. Same thing with Rich Scangarello. I worked with his ass too. But, that's probably why. And he was in a, yes, as a college coach, you want to get your guys ready for the next level. But your job as a college coach is to win games. Your job, my job when I coached in college was not, yes, you want to make them better men, but I wasn't going to get retained or fired. Now, high school's a whole different story, but when you're talking about college football, I don't give a shit how many guys graduate. If you're getting your ass beat and you're losing games, you're going to get fired. Your job is to win football games. Your job is not to produce the most NFL-ready quarterback. So you have to do what's best for your football team. And sometimes it's at the detriment of a kid, and sometimes it helps them. But my thing that I want to know, and there's no way we can get an answer to this, is what happened if the NFL wouldn't have gone towards the revolution of college offenses? There's nobody left. Once Alabama, that ship sailed. I mean, besides Stanford, maybe some of the Big Ten schools, how many teams are really truly running an old pro style offense? What would have happened to quarterbacks?
I mean, it's funny you talk about that. One thing I started noticing about 3 years ago was people would talk and they would look at, we saw this with Mac Jones too. They would compare Mac Jones to a quote unquote veteran quarterback. And I'm like, you mean like Matt Ryan, who's been in the league for 12 years, or Matthew Stafford, who's been in the league for 10, even Andy Dalton, who's been in the league for 10. I mean, a rookie's a rookie past a certain point. Like they're going to come deal with NFL coverages where the backup safety is the best defender on their college team or better than, like it is bizarre the way these comparisons get drawn sometimes.
And they always get compared to the best.
Yeah.
Like it's never the median, even against rookies. It's like, why isn't he doing what Justin Herbert did? Well, how many people have done what Justin Herbert did? Dan Marino. I mean, do we need to go that far back? I mean, you get in a situation where, guys, lightning in the bottle. And also, who are you playing? That's the other thing. Look at the Panthers early in the year. We were talking about this earlier. The Panthers, everybody was like, oh my God, look how great the Panthers are. Well, they had to play somebody where they shouldn't get their ass kicked. I mean, that happens. And so, I don't think the AFC West was like super great on defense last year. I can tell the Chiefs weren't. I can tell you the Broncos were okay. The Raiders, they fired their defensive coordinator. So, I mean, and he played those guys twice. I don't know who he played in the other division. I mean, you are taking the cream of the crop. It is hard to play NFL quarterback. It is really hard to play NFL quarterback as a rookie. And if you're good, you are probably drafted to a shitty team.
Yep.
So it's even harder. Trevor Lawrence, when it's all said and done, if Urban Meyer doesn't completely screw him up, is going to be a very good pro. Is he going to be the next Dan Marino? No. And is he going to be the next Brett Favre? I don't know. But the judgment, look at Jamar Chase. Can we talk about Jamar Chase? He had a couple shitty drops. He had a couple bad preseason games. Told you we should have picked Penei Sewell. Look at him. Now Penei Sewell's not having the best time, and Jamar Chase looks like Jerry fucking Rice. It's like, guys, nobody should be judged. You should judge a draft class after 2 or 3 years. But I understand. Nuance and subtlety is not exactly in a high supply on Twitter. So I get it, and I'm guilty of it too. But that's why I like having these longer conversations and just fleshing out with really smart guys, because I'm not watching the Bears like you guys watch them. I've watched 2 snaps of their offense. I went with what I said about Justin Fields was based on somebody that coached against him in that game. That was like, he's not ready. Somebody that I trust that knows a lot about football told me that. Now, if people start arguing with me, and I know, coaches are assholes and they don't know anything, and it's all who knows who and blah, 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 blah. But I tell you what, there's some really smart guys in there, guys that I trust, guys that I would listen to. And one of those guys was like, he ain't ready yet. And this is what we did. Now, I can't turn around and say, somebody started like arguing with me, and I'm like, what am I going to say? To prove a point to some guy named Derek 46978 on Twitter that I know what I'm talking about.
Get the egg profile picture.
Out my friend, out my buddy who told me this just to prove, dunk on someone on Twitter. That's why I try to stay away from player evaluations. I don't talk about, because every time I go down that road and talk about individual players, I just stay in my lane. We're not talking about cover 2. I'm not talking. I'm like, oh, I'm out of here.
How many quarterbacks make their first start and look really, really ready? Right. I mean, maybe the Justin
playing against a good team.
You know what I mean? It's playing against a good team with 2 all-star pass rushers and, an offensive line with a 39-year-old left tackle and, new receivers that he hasn't practiced with as a starter throughout the entire trip. I mean, there's a lot of extenuating circumstances there that lead to this whole credence of, let's maybe slow down on writing them off or on either. The jury's just never going to be out that quickly.
Right. Well, and it's like anything in life. Like, you look at it and you say, like I said, nuance and subtlety is in short supply. You get in a situation where it's, especially a guy like Fields who was put in not by choice, you know what I mean? And you get in these situations where guys like the Dolphins had a whole plan for Tua. And I laughed at Fitzmagic thought was like surprised by this, but like guys who didn't even cover the Dolphins were like, yeah, this is what they're probably going to do, but it's so hard to play, even shitty play. Like Jared Goff on the planet Earth is in the top 15 quarterbacks, 20 quarterbacks in the world. That shows you how hard it is to play the position. Now I'm biased because Jared did charity work with the company I worked for in the Bay Area. He's a great dude. I know his high school coach. And I'm very biased, and I'm very upfront with that. Like I root for him because I like him, and I think he's a good human, and I like to see good humans succeed. I mean, that's just, the NFL is a better place because people like Jared. I'm not saying players, but people like Jared Goff are in there, and so obviously I want the good guys to do well, just like coaches. Like there's some coaches that are scumbags that are great. And there's some coaches that are great people that are just not good coaches. And I always root for the good guys because the world that I'm in, I mean, I'm not in the NFL, but this is by extension my business. And I have a lot of friends in there and guys I worked with when I was a Gopher. We had very divergent paths, obviously, but, I want to see them do well. And but the problem is guys have to make these takes. And you talk to some of these journalists behind closed doors, and they'll tell you, like, I'm being pushed to say this stuff. I don't really want to comment on this stuff. They're pushed to have these takes, and then to not look like an asshole, they defend it. And there's guys that have said Lamar Jackson was awesome last night. He also had a huge fumble that could have cost his team the game. It didn't. And if you bring up that he fumbled the ball, it's like, you're an asshole. You don't think Lamar Jackson. You think he's just a running back. I'm like, no, but if we're going to take everything in context, the guy needs to do a better job with the football.
Nuance.
Well, but look at the yard he threw for. We're not talking about the same conversation. I'm just saying that he's fumbled a lot and he's got to fix that. That doesn't mean I'm racist and I'm in the Klan or I'm hate Lamar Jackson. Doesn't think to play quarterback. Like I saw somebody make that point on Twitter and you're just a racist. I'm like, what? Because you think that the guy needs to not fumble the ball as much? Like, wait a minute. But then it's or the inverse is he fumbles the ball once and he's terrible. He can't play. He has accuracy issues. I'm like, well, we're talking about two different things. Being bad with the ball in your hand, running around and holding it, not holding it properly is different than accuracy. And it all gets lumped together. Again, nuance, subtlety, short supply. And I just ask everybody who tunes in this is obviously not a fan show. I have guys that are knowledgeable because I love that aspect of it. I love the passion. I'm trying to help teach the game. And frankly, it's been guys who are like, you should do NFL stuff. I'm like, all right, well, let's see how it plays. And if people hate it, it got well received last week. If people hate it, I won't do it anymore. That's a great thing about being your own boss is you try something out and it sucks and you just act like it never happened. Like, I didn't do that. What are you talking about? Just erase it off the face of the earth. But I love talking to guys like you who are very, very passionate about this. And where do you think the franchise goes from here? What's your gut? Start with you, Lorin.
Boy,
let me ask you something because I know you straddle that content creator fan thing, and you don't want to be like too much of a homer, especially if you're like if you cover the Eagles, like you almost have to be like, they're terrible, even when they're good, or else everybody's like, they're suck, they're terrible. Why would you say they did well even though they won? But like, first of all, let me ask you, are you a fan of the team or do you just cover them? And where do you see the franchise going from here? What if you had a crystal ball or you had a gun to your head? And I'm not going to come back and be like, Lorin's if you say Nagy gets an extension and they're in the playoffs for 3 years in a row and he gets fired, I'm not going to come back and be like, well, Lorin said the Bears are going to win the Super Bowl. Like, this is gun to your head scenario.
It's so hard because so I think if I'm predicting, it's not what I would do, but I'm predicting. I think Nagy will be around for a couple more years because I don't think ownership wants to shake things up unless they really, really have to. They want consistency and calm, and even though there's some bumps in the road, if you're 500 and make the playoffs, that's good enough for them. That they're happy with that. They see that as progress, and so I don't think the appetite is there to shake things up. So I think. Does that mean they're in a great spot and the direction is super positive and they're going to go compete for Super Bowls in the next 3 years? I mean, I think they've got a average GM who can find some real steals and make some big mistakes here and there too. So like there's some living and dying with that. And is that good enough? I mean, I don't think they have enough talent on this team right now. And I think the coaching staff can be better, certainly from the head coach position, but Fields can cover up so many mistakes. And if he reaches so much of that potential that we see in him, he can make up for all those things and put you in that position. But it doesn't feel like this is a team that's truly going to put everything together and really like make legitimate Super Bowl runs. But they'll be that team that sniffs around there for a while and ends up in that sort of like borderline, like we're a contender, but we're not like a real contender, but we're in that conversation, but you're never sure, is this going to be the year that they actually push for like an actual Super Bowl spot? That's about where I kind of see this playing out, unless Fields really just takes off and covers everything in a Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes level type way of like, or Aaron Rodgers, MVP caliber type quarterback. And that's realistically, that's probably not where he's going to end up.
Ben Solak just hit me up and said that he's loving this. He just stumbled across it and he's super excited that you're on here, Lorin. So figured I'd pass that along. He's one of my buddies. You got a good defensive coordinator. I mean, it's early days, but I think that Sean, he's thoughtful. He's got some fun tools to play with. The Staley system is corner friendly. It's one of those deals that like you can cover some deficiencies with some of the calls, but if you have a good one, like when Staley had Ramsey, you can do some things differently that can take advantage of that, or like Vic has Surtain. But you've got to run this stuff. You need a good line, which I know off-ball line. It's not cool to say you need good off-ball linebackers anymore, and they're a dime a dozen, blah blah, whatever the analytics say. And that's when I roll my eyes with analytics. Listen, I'm not anti-analytics. I'm not one of these Stone Age guys. But also, if you've never constructed a defense, please don't talk to me about what you need in an off-ball linebacker, because there's so much shit that happens before a play that they're directing traffic. And there's so much instinct that goes into it. And if you have a good one that can cover up, like that play that Rowe made is insane. That could have been a touchdown. And he forced a fumble. Now, I know he's down and everything, but the fact that he was able to get back out there and get a violent enough tackle. I know he's not going against Lamar Jackson, but still, I don't care if it was against me. Getting out to that edge as fast as he did, I was like, whoa, that is impressive. Now, again, full disclosure, I like Roquan Smith. I watched him in college. I'm very good friends with his college coach. Talked to him yesterday. So like I'm biased versus players. Like I like Roquan. I like his coaches. I got to watch him in college. It was fun to watch him go from, being a rookie in his first year and going, oh shit, what's going on? To all of a sudden now he's kicking ass. I love it. Love Eddie Jackson. You guys got some of the heart. Now, you'd be good if you could get a real good corner somewhere, either through free agency next year or the draft. You've got the front. I mean, you've got those interior guys. I know you're not going to overpay for a D tackle, and I know that DNs, pass rushers are king, but when you have really good inside guys, you're able to do shit that you can't do if you don't have them. It's about covering deficiencies, and it'll never show up in the stat sheet. So anyway, I'm sorry. I went on a tangent. What about you, Robert? Where do you see this team in 3 years?
So it's funny.
Not so much it's a shitty question.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yeah, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What's your biggest weakness? And don't say it's you work too hard. No, or I care too much. No, but like, where do you see the arc over the next 3 years? Where do you see this going?
So it's funny that you said gun to my head, because if you asked my ideal scenario, I think that it makes a lot of sense for the Bears. Let's say you, coach, or me got handed the keys to the Bears organization. You could move on probably from Matt Nagy and from the GM, primarily Ryan Pace, and at least reset, figure out your cap stuff, and make a good push from there. But I have a feeling, kind of like what Lorin said, that they don't want to do that. That they want to see this Bears team scrape out 8 wins, squeeze into the playoffs, maybe 9 wins. And then they'll say, okay, great. We took a step forward with the rookie quarterback. And Matt Nagy can't fire his offensive coordinator, who basically saves his job in this scenario. We don't want to fire Sean Desai, like we've talked about. That's really the one cost of doing business that would come with firing Matt Nagy, is retaining Sean Desai would be kind of
unless you make him the head coach. But
Unless
again, I am not annoyed. Let me get this very clear off the bat, and sorry to jump in here. It's 5 games in. I've barely watched the first 4. I skimmed it. Again, I'm picking one team. It's kind of fun for me because not only I learned about a lot of stuff all at first, like all in one game. So I don't know what happened the first week, and I read some articles and some prep, but like I also pick who I'm going to watch like after on Sunday night. And there's not as much, there's a lot of hours in the day to decide on who you're going to watch on Sunday night, because I don't want to pick some like at first I was like, I'll do the Browns Chargers, I'll do the Chargers defense of the Browns this week, and then I saw the score and I was like, never mind. Like, what are you going to talk about? And I don't want to be an asshole. Like, I don't want to do the Chiefs defense. Like, what's wrong with the Chiefs defense? Because nobody wants to hear that.
Right.
Scheme heads would, but now I'm shitting all over the Chiefs, and I like the Chiefs. Like, full disclosure, I'm friends with Mike Kafka. Like, I like Mike. I'm friends with him. Like, he's a great dude. Like, I like him a lot. So last thing I want to do, and I know he's not on the defense, is come on here and shit on somebody that, like, that is not the goal of this. Is to teach and have fun. If you're looking for some like negative crap, I'll get negative about certain calls, but I'm not going to get negative about people, or like the whole show's going to be like, this is why the Chiefs are dog shit. Like, I'm no interest in that whatsoever. Anyway, I'm sorry. What's that?
Unless the coach is an asshole, then you know.
Yeah, if it's Rich Scangarello, I'll be like, this is why Rich Scangarello's a fucking idiot. No, I'm kidding. I shouldn't. Rich was all right to me. He was a prick. I worked for him. He tried to blame me for a loss because I didn't tell him how windy it was going to be in the highest point of elevation in the state of Tennessee that he played in the year before, and I wasn't even there. He tried to put that one at my feet. Not his shitty West Coast offense that's centered on having a fullback and a tight end, which we had neither. We had 4 receivers and a quarterback that could make things happen with his leg. And he decides, I'm going to run the West Coast offense with a freshman tight end and a backup walk-on, or there really is no walk-on at D3, but like a guy that was like a SBH. Do you know what an SBH is? A speed bag with a heartbeat, playing fullback. We're going to run the West Coast offense, and our top play is going to be zone lead weak, smart.
Oh, gosh.
So there's a reason why. This is how bad he is. We had the Marcus Arroyo dunk part. This is the Rich Scangarello dunk part. And don't tell me, oh, he coached the quarterbacks at the night. You know the quarterbacks coaches for the San Francisco 49ers? Kyle Shanahan. That's who the quarterback is. Vic Fangio, in his first year, hires Rich as his OC and then shit cans him after the first year, and they have the same agent. Awkward. Okay, that's how bad. Imagine, like, the NFL, you don't do that. You don't fire an OC after 1 year. You damn well don't fire the guy that you hired. It's not like he retained him and was like, well, let's see if it works out. He'd like, get this guy out of here. So, and I only say that because I worked with Rich, and Rich was an asshole to me, and I don't have time for that.
Right.
Anyway, I'm like team coach until you're an asshole to me, and then I'm going to be like, oh, let's talk about this. Let's talk about how shitty you are. Because I have an extra grind and I don't have to answer to anybody. It's fantastic. Anyway, I'm eating into your answer, Robert.
No,
let me get you guys out of here. It's 10 o'clock where you're at. So
the relative answer is
no. Let me tell you else what's wrong with Rich getting
get him. Get him. But I basically worry similar to Lorin, because I am a big fan of the team, that the Bears are going to trade mediocrity with like a little bit of contendership where Bears fans can renew their season tickets and say, maybe this is the year, but by trading into the first round for like Chris Olave, should he fall that far or something like that, saying all we need is one receiver. Allen Robinson's going to leave in free agency, but we get one receiver, team's fixed. Like maybe they'll make a move at center. Maybe they won't. Like there's so many things that they could do given the time to reset, but I worry they're going to just say, well, if we don't compete in 2022, everybody's going to get mad. So let's keep everything the way that it is, try to go for another 5 seed, maybe, and that they'll talk themselves into that sort of thing. You never know. It's the NFL. All it takes is one. What is it? The Saints in 2017 had one absolute banger of a draft class, and the franchise basically reset overnight. So you never know. But I do worry that they're going to again, value stability, keep everything basically the same, and that means the results will stay basically the same. You know what I mean?
There's some NFL politics to this too, where the Bears keep talking about moving to Arlington Heights. And if you start you're not tanking it, but if you start blowing things up and losing games, and if, merchandise sales and ticket sales are down a little bit, you're not going to have as much money to pay for that new stadium, right? There's an incentive for them to just win enough to just get enough ticket sales and merchandise sales to keep those revenues high as they think about paying the buyout to leave Soldier Field and then paying to build this new stadium in Arlington Heights. I mean, there's some of that from the ownership perspective that obviously is not prioritizing what's best for your franchise in terms of winning football games, but there's other priorities when you have a business ownership group like that.
Yep.
Interesting. The politics of the NFL is hilarious. There's so much of it that goes on.
It's
also funny because, the defensive download, which I hope that's actually your real name. I hope your first name is defensive and your last name is download. He asked a question like, how important is Eddie Jackson? Yeah, that's true. I wonder if he's an Ohio State fan. The defensive download. How important is Eddie Jackson in this defense? And this just shows you how removed I am from this world. Like, and I'm straight up honest with it. Like, I X's and O's is my thing. Like I said, I had friends who were like, do some NFL stuff, and I tried to make some of those videos. And the problem is, I spent, the biggest weakness is I just care too much. Which, like that bonus fire zone, I did a 45-minute video on one blitz that had some offshoots to it. It took me 3 weeks to make, and I was like, I can't do this. So this is perfect for me because I can do some studying, and we can get on here and roll the ball out and see what happens and have some fun. And luckily, I've built up enough goodwill in this space to have 2 gold-nutted studs like you guys come on and be like, I'll be your wingman for a couple hours, even though I've talked about football all day. Sure. I've been very lucky and blessed in that regard. But I don't think in these terms, but my friend, the defensive download, asked a great question. What do you think of Eddie Jackson? How important is he? And I'm like, he's pretty freaking important. And then his follow-up is most Bears fans would say he's not worth $14 million. And I was like, oh shit, that's right. There's the salary. Like, I don't think about salary cap, I'm thinking like building. Usually my world, except for 4 years was, I'd have these kids. I'm giving this group of kids. How do I make a defense out of this? And then in college, I was never around for longer than a year. So it was kind of the same thing. I didn't have like recruiting to build off of, or I wasn't the coordinator where it was like coach the corners. I'm like, all right, I'll coach the corners. I get 5 minutes an individual a day. Okay, cool. But to think about not only who do I get this year, but who do I got to worry about like 5 years in the future and balancing the cap and all. Again, and I know NFL fans, you don't want to hear this shit, but that's got to be miserably hard too. There's a reason why being a general manager in this league and why there's such a miss rate, even the best. I mean, even the best, how many do you hit on your draft picks? That's why I got less obsessed with the draft, because I just realized like, oh shit, nobody plays like for a couple of years, like very few guys, or it's the guys you didn't expect.
Right.
Those third or fourth round running backs, you just out of nowhere that you're just like, oh shit, that guy's an NFL starter. Who is that again? You know what I mean? Like, and all of a sudden they're just and I might be slandering here, but like David Montgomery, he's missing from the Bears right now, right? Mm-hmm. Like, where did he go to school?
Iowa State.
Iowa State. I thought he was a Stanford guy, so that shows you how much I know. He was pretty good at Iowa State, but he wasn't like, you wouldn't have thought when he came out like, oh my God, if we have David Montgomery and he's out, we are screwed. You know what I mean? Like, that's what's so cool. And to your point about progressing is, it's not even how guys progress, it's who's going to progress. It's a crapshoot, even the best of the best. And my favorite story about NFL scouting is Scott Pioli. On his desk, he had 3 pictures when he was at New England. One was of his family. Boo, overrated. No, I'm kidding. One was of Tom Brady, and the other one was the guy that he picked before Tom Brady to remind him, like, you're not that smart. You picked Brady in the 6th round, but you also picked some other asshole that I don't even think made it through camp before him. You thought he was better than Tom Brady. So I love that because it's a reminder of like, hey, I did this really cool thing, but remember, you also did this other thing that wasn't so good. And like most of us would say Pioli's got to be one of the best general managers in the last 20, 25 years, right? I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. My man Jordan here will probably be like, well, actually in 2007, he had this call that was really bad. Like, I don't know as much as you guys do about this side of the game, but like, and even he screwed up. So
yeah,
I encourage you. I want to try to bring the human element to this game of like, I know it's easy. Listen, when it comes to the Hurricanes, and I'm like very protective over coaches, especially to like fans. Even I'm like, listen, when Urban Meyer was at Florida, and if the Taliban had a football team, I would have rooted for the Taliban over Florida. However, if Urban Meyer wanted to come and coach the Hurricanes tomorrow, I would like personally escort him. I would go pick him up in my car and drive him down. Yeah, I know. Actually, yeah, I know it was coming, Jordan. I would personally escort him down there. So I'm as irrational, like as much as I'm like, guys, just take a step back, give everybody a chance. Like it's just really hard. I know you don't want to hear that because these guys are getting paid a lot of money and this is supposed to be entertainment. And if you're paying your heart and soul, and like you guys, you're putting your heart and soul into this, it's like, I don't know. And we don't have to get into like how much of this is your full-time job versus part-time job versus hobby. Because some guys I talk to, it's totally for fun. Sometimes it's their job. Like how much of the blood, sweat, and tears you're putting into this. So like, you don't actually be like, you know what? We suck. And I've been a Bears fan since I was born and I hate this and our team sucks. But you know, Ryan Pace is a family and we should keep that in mind. Like I get that that's not the easiest thing to do as a fan. So I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here. But anyway, I've talked enough. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and flying with me tonight. I don't know who I'm going to do next week. We'll see how the games shake out. I'm not even going to. First, I was like, well, maybe I'll put it to a couple games. Believe me, when I saw this game, I would not have thought I'm going to do, you know, Bears versus Raiders. That was not my top 3. But I watched the condensed version on NFL Network, and I was like, damn, okay, like that's I want to watch this. Plus, I've wanted an excuse to talk about Sean Desai. So I'll kind of put it out there. And guys, if I haven't pissed you off enough and whatever, if you guys ever want to come back, we talk about the Bears. I'd love to have you back. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Any fun? Give yourselves a plug again. Tell guys that are still around where we can find you outside of this.
Go ahead, Robert.
Okay. You can find me on windycitygridiron.com and on YouTube at Run Pass Opinion. Vass, you and I both had the same name idea. Like,
well, it wasn't my idea. I put that out to. I wanted to be 4 verts in a cloud of dust. And everybody's like, that's corny and too long. I'm like, all right, fine. Because the whole thing was like
4 verts.
What's that?
Charles McDonald's beat you to the 4 verts anyway.
Yep.
Fuck Charles McDonald. I'm just kidding. I love Charles McDonald.
I thought you were really going there for a second.
No, fuck no. I love Charles. He ain't taking my name. I don't care about that. No, Charles is my favorite. Talk about guys real quick. Talk about guys watching guys progress. I love watching guys like him. Like when I met these guys, and this was only like 2 years ago. Like I did a thing. I had like 15, 20 NFL guys on a clinic. They wanted to learn scheme. And I was just like, whoever sends us out, anybody's invited, that you just got to be a writer. You want to be in here because you're either a writer or a content creator and you want to learn football. And so I send the invite. My mom has a stroke that morning. I'm stuck in California. I can't go. I couldn't come home to Orlando for 3 or 4 days because of flights, and I was like right before Christmas break. And so everybody's like, hey man, we understand if you don't want to do this. I'm like, oh no, we're doing this. Cause like, what am I going to do? Sit at home and be sad? So Kiss was on there. McDonald was on there. Solak was on there. And we just went for like 6 hours. I'm like, what do you guys want to know? And they're like, what's this coverage? I'm like, boom. And it was like the best thing that, because those guys and Kist and Solak, like Schofield is another guy. Like I was in the hospital with COVID. That day they sent like food to the nurses and I had balloons. And then when I got home, Schofield sent me like this whole like food, like snack thing. Like those guys are just, I have all the time in the world for those guys. Charles, Kist, all those guys. And it's really cool because like I didn't know this world existed until recently, until like the last year and a half or so. And some of my favorite people I've met in football are guys like you that either are in broadcasting, they're writers, like Ted Nguyen's another guy I absolutely love, or content creators that do like shows on YouTube, like you, Robert. I've done some radio stuff. I did like a couple weeks with the Big 12 network on Sirius last year. Just I'm meeting so many people that are in this landscape that are doing it for the right reason and are around. And it's just so much fun to have because I now have the time to do this stuff and get to connect with people. And I just really appreciate guys like you, because when I was growing up and trying to learn this shit, when I was guys like the guys that are in this chat, when I didn't know anything, it was bad. There was nobody out there teaching the game. Like I had to sift through. I still have the document somewhere, like sifting through like articles to get little nuggets about different defenses and stuff. And I'm jealous of these guys that are coming out now because the guys like you dedicate your time to this and teaching. It's just it's phenomenal. And so as the 21-year-old me is thanking you for helping out the 21-year-old version of me that's out there right now that just loves this game and wants to learn, because that's the question I get the most. How do I learn? And it's just such like I don't know, like a lot of it's through osmosis, but to actually have stuff like this where it's like designed to teach for a whole different crowd. Like I'm guaranteed none of my coaching friends are on here tonight. They're all like, dude, we got a game on Friday. You think I'm going to listen to you talk about the NFL? Like, and I get it. I was the same way. So I just appreciate you guys. I asked both of you guys without hesitation. You were like, hell yeah, I'm there. And like Lorin, we never even talked before. We followed each other, but like I didn't even talk to you before. And I'm like, hey man, I'm doing this thing where I'm gonna do most of the talking. Like, you just want to come on and hang out, and like, because I was gonna do scheme stuff. So anyway, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for your time and thank you for what you're doing.
I was gonna say we got to get you down to Mobile for the Senior Bowl, because some of those nights at the bar with Kist and Charles and Solak and Schofield and Brian Perez and all those guys from the Twitter sphere, it becomes a hell of a night. And
I promise, and probably not this year because I'm still freaked out. I'm still recovering from COVID, and hopefully by like just the shit with my lungs. But 2023, I'm there. Robert, did you get to plug all your stuff? I'm sorry, because
I plugged. Lorin didn't plug.
Lorin didn't plug. I'm sorry, Lorin. You got to plug before we go.
Hey, Robert, you stopped at the run pass opinion. I wanted to mention.
Oh yeah, I'm an idiot. I jumped in. I'm so sorry.
If I get out Windy City Gridiron, run pass opinion, I'm like, I wouldn't remember more than 2 if I was watching. Go there first. You'll hear everything else.
That's why I get a link tree. I got to like 4 things. Like, all right, I'm just gonna put this all in one place.
I'm out.
Yeah.
I don't even remember this shit.
Yeah, so I host the Locked On Bears podcast 5 days a week, and I do some radio down here in around the state line area here in southern Wisconsin, some northern Illinois stuff, and do some grading for Pro Football Focus on the side here and there. But on Twitter at Cox Sports 1 Locked On Bears podcast, that's kind of the main thing.
What's the radio show you're? Tell me about the radio show you're on.
I haven't put this on Twitter. I just got a new gig starting next week. I'm actually going to Wisconsin Public Radio in Madison, but it's not.
Congratulations, Scott Country, Madison. I love Madison.
I cover the Badgers, so I've got a lot of experience with Paul Christ and Jim Leonard, and before that Justin Wilcox and Dave Aranda. I got a couple of years of Dave Aranda when I was in college, and I loved every time I could talk to that man.
There he is. I mean, Dave's wonderful. Jim's wonderful. Justin's wonderful. I got to hang out with Justin. I was at Wisconsin on Washington, when he was at Washington one of our kids this was back when you could hire high school guys to work at camps, and I got to spend an hour with Justin. The shitty part was my notebook was stolen out of my bag, out of my car, so I don't have the notes anymore, but got to spend in there. Well, my computer, the one time I had a date in the city in San Francisco, it was one of those deals. I had to bring my laptop. There was no way around it. And the one time I brought my laptop and went to the car, the one freaking time out of hundreds of nights, it gets stolen out of my car.
Of course.
And they have my notebook in it. So they weren't like, give me the Justin Wilcox notes, but it was the shrapnel basically stole the bag. But those are amazing guys. And Jim is, I did a thing with Jim on Patreon. He took his kids home, they came back early from like a weekend trip, dropped his kids off the house, drove back to the office to do like a Sunday night thing, and then like wouldn't take a dime for it. Like I'm like, I'm gonna figure out your PayPal, like, because I told him I'd pay him and everything, and he like wouldn't take a dime for it. He is the best, and I got to spend a couple days with him over the summer, and he is just. They get more bang for their buck out of their scheme than any defense in college football. Like they have them in Georgia have just the right amount in, because most people have the Goldilocks problem. They got too much shit in or not enough, and it's that sweet spot, having enough in with enough variations where it's not just redundant, where you're doing the same crap over and over again. And Jim is great. And if I was a Badger. This is not inside information. I'm not breaking any news. This is just purely off of my opinion. Like, he's got big things on the horizon, and he's awesome. And I'm excited to see whatever happens to him, because he's one of the good guys in the game.
He's going to make
every reason not to be. Like, he was a phenomenal NFL player. Everybody knows who he is. He doesn't need to hobnob with coaches and stuff. Like, if anybody was to be an arrogant prick and not return texts and stuff, it'd be him. He's the best.
He's going to make some team very, very happy as their head coach. And there's a growing contingency of Badger fans that would like to see him there instead of Paul Christ running that shit. But that's a whole other conversation for sure.
Can I tell I know we're 3 hours and 20 minutes. Can I tell a 2-minute Jim Leonard story? So I actually was the reason, I didn't know this till much later, but I was actually the reason that they and Cincinnati got together this offseason. So Jim hit me up in January when we were doing the thing, and he's like, all right, I know you study this stuff. Who you liking in college? I was like, honestly, the most interesting guys that I saw this season doing different stuff with Cincinnati. And he's like, oh, okay. And so he asked me about it, whatever. Didn't think much of it, because I get that question a lot, because that's what people know I do. So then he called me about something in May. We were talking. He had me look something up or do something for him. So I'm always happy to, because he's given me more than I'll ever be able to pay back. So anytime he's like, hey, can you do me a favor? I'm like, yeah, you don't have to ask. So he asked me the same question in May. I think it was May or April or May. He asked me the same question, and I forgot that he had asked me. And I says, well, you should check out Cincinnati. He goes, oh yeah, you already told me about them. They're actually coming on Tuesday. I was like, what? He goes, yeah, we set up a visit. They're coming up on Tuesday. I was like, oh, how'd you set that up? And he's like, well, you gave me the recommendation. And so I watched him and I loved him. And I reached out because Tressel was there. Tressel's brother was there, I think. Mike Tressel took over for Freeman, who I interviewed on my podcast. And I had Colin Hitchler, the safeties coach, on in Cincinnati. And so I hit up Marcus Freeman to how this all came to be was I hit up Marcus Freeman to interview. He just gotten the Notre Dame job. He says, yes, but I got something going on. So I had a very small window to interview. So I was like, well, do you have any GAs or any QCs that love talking football? Because I always ask to talk to the young guys that have time and like excited about it. He goes, I'll put you in touch with my safeties coach. Well, I thought he meant his new safeties coach in Notre Dame. No, he made Colin Hitchler, the Cincinnati coach, who I don't know if he asked and Colin turned him down or he didn't ask or whatever, but basically his old safeties coach that night gets on a Zoom with me and teaches me a bunch of the stuff. And that's when I kind of fell in love with it. So I hit up Colin. I was like, that night we talked and got you ready, you got me ready for that Marcus Freeman interview. He's like, yeah. I go, that's the reason that you guys are going to visit Wisconsin. He's like, get the fuck out of here. I was like, no, seriously. I was like, because you taught me the stuff. I fell in love with it. Then Jim asked me. Then Jim started watching. And it wasn't like he's like, oh, you think Cincinnati should come in and like immediately call them. But because I told him to watch Cincinnati and he dug it, that set up the interview. So Cincinnati went and visited Wisconsin based on my recommendation. And I was like blown away. I was like, you actually remember what I told you? Let alone like went and booked the whole thing. Yeah, it was crazy. And I couldn't really say anything because, they were both playing Notre Dame and I didn't know how much of that. I don't know like what they talked about. I was actually kind of pissed. I was like, wait a minute. So I helped set this up on both sides, and I don't get to like a Zoom invite to like be a fly on the wall. Like, what the hell is this all about?
Yeah.
And then I was like, so what'd you guys talk about? And Jim was like, oh, we talked about a few things. I was like, so you're not going to tell me after I gave you the recommendation? This is bullshit, Jim. Gave him a hard time, but no, Jim is the man, and that guy, he'll ask anybody if he thinks that you can help him. It doesn't matter if you're a fan or I don't know about fan. I think he might. I don't know how I feel about that, but like if you're a coach at any level and you think you can give him some sort of edge, or scheme or know something, he'll listen. So a lot of college guys do it to like, it's almost like, it's not patronizing, but it's like if you're recruiting a guy, they want to make you feel special. So like, what do you think? What do you think? And then they immediately tune out. But he's like for real. So he is one of my favorite people. Anyway, all right, guys. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate you. We will do this again next Tuesday. Lorin, congratulations on the new gig. Anything else you want to plug?
No,
that's a pretty big one.
Everything in there. Thank you.
What's the call? What's the call sign, or what are the letters for the public radio?
Wisconsin. Honestly, I don't even know. There's 1,000 stations across the state. I have no idea.
Okay. Oh, because it's. I got you. Well, it's not like one radio station. So it's like the PBS or network or okay.
But I get those sweet state benefits and state retirement program. I'm a UW Madison employee now, apparently.
No way, really?
Because they own the station. Yeah.
How many years? How many years do you get a pension? 5. What's
5? Yep.
California, I think it's 5 years and you get healthcare for life.
Ooh.
Okay. My mentor got let go 1 month before.
No,
that's intentional.
No, it just happened. It was a coaching change. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. The misery. Anyway, there's still 20 people here listening to me rattle on. All right, I'm calling you here. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.